Can you guys hear me now? On stream, can you guys hear me now?
Those were some fast emails.
Okay, we're getting a little bonus content, gang. Okay, some bonus content. As I was saying before, I realized I was muted. Um, Katee decided to message me, and she wanted to have a conversation with Tali, and she is okay that I stream this. To be clear, though, if you send me a super chat, I've been requested not to read it on stream, so I won't. But you can still send them. I'll read them, but I won't read them out loud on my stream. So just so you know, um, Primecayes wanted to be here too, and that was also okay. So we invited our friend Prime back in because we like Prime. It is on Twitch. I did put it on Twitch too. It should be on all platforms. So.
Oh yeah, and if someone from your chat wants to ask me a question, they can write me instead of doing weird super chats for you. So I have stream. You can ask questions there if you want.
Okay, well, Tali, you're here. You ready? Prime, I don't know if you're ready or not, but when you get ready, just jump on in. Katee, you wanted to start the conversation? Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess full disclosure, right? So I didn't watch the whole thing. I only caught like the end part, the part where you were talking, because like I don't know. So you were on Prime. I'm just trying to get to know you a bit, if that's okay first. I was told that you're like,
Yeah.
do you stream?
I don't. Okay, so can you guys see Wick? Because I think my Discord might be glitching again, but I don't know if it's Wix that is glitching. I can't see him. Can you guys?
I have an overlay
I-
over him.
I
so.
can see him, unfortunately. It's hurting my eyes.
Bro.
All right, so basically, fair warning. When my thing did this before, that's when I got kicked out during the super chat. So I'll come right back. I think this is an issue on my end, but I don't. I would like to stream. I do like some podcasting, but I've been doing like some WIC panels and debates. So that's really just in the last like couple weeks, a month. So pretty recent.
Oh, I thought it was Prime. I guess Doobie lied to me, that bastard. Um. So and so you don't stream, but you'd like to, and you're. Is it okay if I ask if you're Israel? I was told that you're from Israel, so I was just.
I'm not from Israel. I'm an American Jew. I have like friends and family and people I care about. I lived there during like a study abroad program in college. Um, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I don't know who. I guess it was Doobie that told me that you're Israeli. So yeah. So first of all, I guess I will be way less mean now that I know that you're not.
Okay.
No. Okay. So and you described yourself as like right center wing. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I used to be like pretty far left. I've had an
Really?
ideological shift over the last like 4 years. Yeah, I was really far left. I like considered myself a radical. I've moved to the center, which means moving to the right. People on the left insist that I'm right wing, and that's fair enough. I hold lots of more right wing views, but people on the right see me as a shit lib. So
Yeah, like a
um,
regular lib. Yeah, if you're
I'm
a
sure
radical,
I'm a
if you're a
liberal.
radical
I'm
leftist,
a
everything
liberal.
is right wing.
Yes, that's true.
And especially because leftists, those types of leftists don't necessarily have a distinction between right wings and like shit libs. So for them, it's like
Yeah,
all the same.
absolutely. Schrodinger's
So
liberal.
I guess to like maybe I'll use this angle to go into it. So when you say you were what you would call like radical left, how does that come about in terms of like your Zionism? Were you an anti-Zionist? Were you less pro-Israel? Do you consider yourself pro-Israel? Because again, I didn't watch the whole thing, so I'm just trying to get a general vibe.
Oh yeah, I'm a Zionist. I'm definitely pro-Israel.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, I'm pro-Palestine too, if that means the liberation and self-determination and sovereignty of Palestinian people. But yes, I support the state of Israel. All of those things. I So I had my sort of the beginning of my ideological turn was in 2021. So prior to that, it wasn't as serious of a litmus test to be a Zionist, basically. Like things
Yeah,
weren't.
for sure.
So I knew that that was like the one thing that where I slightly differed with my peers, and we would talk about it, and it was mostly respectful conversations at that point in time. And
Yeah.
my politics with regards to Israel were much more left wing than they are now. Like at that time, I believed that the settlements were like the main impediment to peace. I think they are a problem and an impediment, but certainly not the main one or the reason or anything today. So my views on specifically Israeli politics have also moved towards the center or towards the right. But no, I've always had an affinity for Israel and all of that. But the rest of my politics were just sort of lockstep, lefty, radical, progressive. I mean, these words even now mean sort of different things than they did back in like 2016 and whenever I was using them. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a really like fair point that you bring up that like if you're thinking about like 2021 and you're even a radical leftist, people weren't really asking anyone like, "Are you a Zionist?" And even if someone were like
They kind of started in 2021 doing that, which is again sort of like when the beginning of the break was for me. But prior to that, especially, it wasn't. It wasn't a litmus test in that way.
Yeah, and then even if Israel comes up, it's just like when you said you're an American, not a Canadian, right?
Yeah, American.
Yeah, so even then you would be like, oh, well, I know it's complicated. So that would be like the thing that like American leftists are not necessarily the most comfortable talking about unless they're Jewish. And if you are Jewish, which you said you are, then you'd have a bit more of like a leg to stand on in those leftist spaces. So like I get what you're saying. You're making good distinctions.
That's a good point. That used to matter more, actually. Like back in
Yeah,
the
for
day,
sure.
yeah, in from a sort of like intersectional framework, it was respected that like right that I might feel differently as a Jewish person or whatever. Not that anyone had to agree with me, but yes, it was respected that a Jewish person might feel an affinity for Israel, and that doesn't make them a right-wing bigot or something like that. So there was more
Yeah.
acceptance of that fact that doesn't exist really today.
So, by the way, I'm really sorry. I realized that I might come out. I assume you don't know anything about me, so I should probably. I assume.
I've seen I've been an observer in this space for a little while, so I've seen you in like a couple debates and conversations, but I've never watched your stream or anything like that, so I don't know
Yeah,
a
of course.
tremendous amount about you.
No. I'm not like. I'm famous. It's more just like. Because I don't know if you know that I'm an anti-Zionist. Like Wick said, I don't know if you said it, that he's here as like to be your shield. So I assumed that if that came from you, that would be because you understand that I don't necessarily have a lot to politically agree with you on this topic.
Yes, I know that you disagree. Yeah, about Israel.
Okay. So I'm just making sure, so it's not like you're not caught off by like stuff that I'm going to start saying.
I'm like a
right?
hostage, gang. It's fun. Anyway, go ahead.
Is it? I think I'm being very chill, actually. I don't know.
It was a joke.
I hope it doesn't feel like an interview or an interrogation, by the way.
Interview is cool. Yeah, no, it's not hostile. I mean, that's all I care about.
I actually do think that interviews are a really interesting way to get perspective. Like, even if you're willing to play just objective and ask the right questions, like, you can sometimes reveal so much more about that person's politics if you try to debate them, Because that way...
If you let them speak, yeah.
Yeah, if you let them speak, but also if you, I guess, put your politics aside and just play the objective card, they also feel more comfortable to share more.
It's like exactly the whole drama going on with Loner Box and people accusing him of going on being a propagandist because he interviewed people and asked them to express their beliefs without coming back and fighting every single point that they had. So yeah, no, I'm glad that we all agree that that is a totally valid way of getting people to express what they believe, and maybe even a more powerful way to counter it because you allow them to get their perspective all the way out.
I'm glad you said that, because Lonerbox had very similar complaints about when Hassan interviewed someone. So it's interesting that he would complain about something like that when
this is super
Hassan was doing
passive-aggressive.
interviewing as well. But so it's good that you brought that up.
Well, to
Tali,
be fair, Hassan interviewing the Houthi terrorist, he wasn't allowing his views to just come up. He was like talking to him about anime and stuff, right? So Lonerbox, when he was talking to Yishai Fleischer, wasn't saying like, "What's your favorite food?" and like, "What are the games that you like to play?" Right? They were having a substantive conversation about his ideological and political beliefs, which was not something that Hassan probed at all. But yeah, I agree that there would be nothing wrong with Hassan talking to someone that I might consider a terrorist. There are people that Lonerbox and Destiny spoke to that I might consider a terrorist, and I think that it was valid journalistic work to speak to them.
hey,
Yeah.
before you
Of course,
begin,
the man has to interrupt the women talking.
sorry,
Go ahead,
I
Fran.
do apologize. I just a quick question to Tali. You said how in I guess leftist spaces there was an understanding at some point that Jews might have different feelings on this, and there was more of an allowance for that. Um, do you understand, even if you don't agree with it, which you probably don't, but do you understand why that's changed and people feel that they kind of demand basically that Jews kind of pick a side here?
Oh, I think that's like a totally crazy thing to say. I think that's crazy, and just like a demand that we don't put on any other ethnic group where the country maybe that they come from or that their people descend from is involved in like war crimes and atrocities all over the world. We don't hold other people to the standard. No Jew should be forced to pick a side. In fact,
That's not really
and we
true. We
and
hold Muslims to that standard all the time. Americans at least do. But
Yeah.
sure.
yes,
So
Muslims are not an ethnic group.
I don't really agree that we do that, but we shouldn't. No one should. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, well, you go,
I
kid.
don't boycott Chinese restaurants or like Russian spas or anything like that.
yeah. But you would agree that while you might not do that and think that's reprehensible, there are definitely people who have some questions if someone is from China or from Russia or from Iran, for example. Like, I know Iranian people that are constantly asked, like, hey, how do you feel about the Iranian government? Because, and
You call
again,
those
like,
people bigots,
nationality is
right?
not the same as an ethnic group, and Muslim is not an ethnic group either. But I think you would agree that does happen, even if you don't do it.
Sure, but of course, there's like you would agree that there's a substantive difference between saying like, "Hey, what do you think about all that drama going on in your home country or where your parents are from?" and saying, "You better pick a side right now." Those are obviously different things. So it's totally fair. I think it's natural that people get curious, especially people who don't know a lot of Jews or Palestinians. They meet one and they're like, "Well, wow, okay, you're an expert." Suddenly, they assume the person is an expert or
Yeah.
expect them to have an opinion, and that's fair and fine. And I don't like to. I don't believe in like. I no longer believe in microaggressions and things of these nature. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with asking these questions. But I think
Okay.
that's different from demanding people take a side and purity testing people in that way.
Yeah, I guess I do want to let Prime finish what he said, but just to respond to that point that you made, I think the difference for me is that I don't think people go, you have to pick a side. What they will do is that they'll ask a Jewish person their opinion, and if the Jewish person happens to be a Zionist, then they will react to them differently. And that is like,
Or
I
if the
guess what you
person
mean
or
with
if the
like pick the
person
wrong side. Sorry?
Sure. Or if the person is not a Zionist, doesn't call themselves a Zionist, but just is not sufficiently critical or condemnatory,
I agree with
that
that.
will also land you in hot water.
I agree with that. There's an issue, and maybe we will get into it. You said you were a leftist, so I know that you would be aware of it. That there are a lot of American Jews that um, they might be Zionists. They don't know that they're Zionists. They're like very like not politically involved. They might think they're apolitical, and so for them, being encountered like being ambushed by a leftist, being asked all these questions and expect them to hit all the talking points, that might be a bit. Yeah, I do agree that there's, and I assume you would agree too, that there's a large swath of Jewish Americans who are just not as well versed in this topic to be able to make the right talking points that leftists would want them as Jewish people to make.
100%. Most Jews in America fall into that category. Just like not totally politically involved, don't have talking points that would satisfy the average leftist.
They definitely no, I agree that they definitely don't have talking points that would satisfy. But I do want, I guess, to ask this: do you agree that this vast majority who are not very like politically involved, do you agree that ideologically they are more Zionist than they're certainly not anti-Zionist, right? Their natural affiliation is Zionism, the same way, if you're born in America, you're probably capitalist, right? Like
Hold
that
on.
makes sense.
Can
That's
Loaderbox
the
come in?
status quo.
Can Loaderbox come back?
Fuck that guy. If I kick Prime, can I be with Tali?
No. Come on, bring him in.
I don't want to slow down your conversation. So, like, if that's the case, I mean, I can leave. I thought this. I didn't know this was going to be streamed in the first place.
I didn't know it was going to be streamed either. Like I said, this is just all thing.
Yeah, I don't want to interfere. So if that keeps it strong.
If Tali wants to bring in Loaderbox, I'm not gonna
in the box.
Okay, so we're good.
Bringing the Sock Dem Lebanese representative.
Okay.
Yes.
Like I said, I didn't know this was happening until just now, and we're just kind of winging it, bros. So here we are. Anyway, continue, please.
Just to clarify, guys. Okay, Katee, it sounds like you're saying when Westoids challenge and purity test Muslims over their feelings about some, like the recent Al Qaeda or ISIS attack or whatever, that's bad, right? They shouldn't do that. We shouldn't harass Muslims and expect them to like give us a strong statement on terrorist attacks that have nothing to do with them.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Prime. Why do it with Jews?
Well, hold on. So to be clear, I wasn't advocating for anything. I was just asking Tali if she understood while there was a change, and even whether she agreed with it or not. So I don't think that a random Jewish individual needs to answer for Israel. I don't think Jewishness and Zionism go hand in hand. So I certainly wouldn't say something like that. But it just when talking about this particular conflict that has this level of political salience, right, that has been going on for this long, that with this level of media coverage, it is, I think, natural, if wrong, natural to when approaching someone and learning about their past to say, oh, do you have an opinion on this, and then unfortunately judging them one way or the other.
So we're saying it's understandable, by the same token, it's understandable why right-wingers start asking like Muslims to pick a side when there's something happening newsworthy in the Middle East. But
of course, well, when 9/11 happened, Muslims were told to denounce terrorism constantly. You have to denounce terrorism. Now, I don't think they should have, like I said, right? But I think it's natural to say, hey, do you support this? I mean, like you have quote unquote ties, right?
I just want to be clear, gang. I know you guys. I know this is a conversation, but Katee here is kind of like I don't want to distract. I don't want to take away the time that I promised Katee.
I apologize.
For a loner versus Prime debate, which again, you guys are here. You can contribute and all these things. But Katee was like, I want to talk to Tali, and I want to make sure that happens. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, Loaderbox. I'm sure you. I guess I don't want to be dragged to what you think you're doing there. Whatever. I'll just move past that. I cannot be bothered with this today.
What does that mean?
It means that I've had multiple conversations with Loaderbox, and if I wanted to talk to Loaderbox, I would have just DM'd him. That's what it means.
Okay.
So...
Do you want me to go? I can just go if you want.
If you want him to go, he can go.
I mean,
this seems silly. Like, what? I don't really see the issue. If he wants to be here, what's the issue? Like,
there is no issue. I'm going to ask my question to you now. I'm just... Perfect. Obviously, I have stuff to say from what I hear, but I also don't want to get into it, so I'm going to move past that. I just don't want it to seem like I have... don't have anything to say. Okay, anyway. You said something earlier that I thought was interesting. So you said that you used to feel like the settlements were the main issue that was stopping, I guess, a two-state solution, would you say?
Sure.
And you don't
Yeah.
feel that
Yes.
way anymore. So I was going to ask, like, what do you
No.
think the main reason is?
Frankly, I think the main impediment to a two-state solution has been the refusal of Arab leadership to accept that there will not be a full right of return to Israel proper. And so I think the fact that the sort of refugee problem has been a central issue that leadership has refused to concede on, that Israel is never going to concede to. That is a de facto one state. There would be no point in making two states if you also said, but also whoever wants to come, live anywhere in Israel can do that as well. I think that's the main impediment. Now, I think the settlements are a huge impediment to what a Palestinian state would actually look like. They are grinding in the eyes of everybody watching. It's just like a big fuck you. It's certainly not helpful. But I think that before the settlements became so entrenched, there were sincere offers to give over the majority of the West Bank to a future Palestinian state and to allow a certain number of Palestinian refugees. And we have to remember, too, Palestinian refugees does not just mean people who were actually displaced in 1948 or
I
1967.
mean,
It
their
means their
descendants.
descendants and their
Yeah.
descendants. Correct. And their descendants, even if they have citizenship in one or multiple other nations.
Also
And so,
merging families. So if you started a family somewhere, then you have a right of return. You're also then allowed to bring your entire family over, and that family might have no direct descendants to
certainly.
Palestine. Yeah.
Sure. And I think, listen, the way that Israel has a right of return for Jews, I think a Palestinian state should have a right of return for Palestinians and their descendants and any, like you're saying, mixed families that have come about. And I think a certain amount of Palestinian refugees, whatever definition we're using for that, should be allowed in a two-state solution. A certain number should be allowed to move to Israel proper, and that was always on the table.
Yeah. So
I think, yeah, the refusal to give up on the refugee crisis and actually put an end to negotiations and to say that people now have their states and they are no longer stateless and they're not fighting to regain the land in Israel proper. Until we get to that point, I think that's the largest impediment to peace,
when
to
you're
a
saying
two-state
Israel,
solution.
when you're saying Israel proper, you mean 67 borders or 48?
I mean,
Or something else?
I'm talking about what is Israel today, so not including the West Bank, not including Gaza.
Okay.
The 67
Golan
borders never
Heights?
existed, right? Sure, I'd be open to negotiating the Golan Heights.
Okay.
It's not necessary. I'm not interested in some greater Israel plan. I don't need. I don't. I could give up any part of Israel that is not part of the contiguous, again, Israel proper that is recognized by the United Nations as sovereign Israel today. Those are the borders that I'm talking about.
Yeah. I'll
You could
tell
go back
you
to 67, where Egypt owns Gaza and Jordan owns the West Bank, and they could create a sovereign Palestinian state. I would support that too. I'm in support of Jews and Israel not controlling those lands. Yeah, sure. That's totally fine with me.
Yeah. The only problem there would be that if you create a geographic strip to connect them, you are destroying Israel's continuity, and that would be the main issue with that. But you know that.
That was
So.
that offer was on. Well, that offer was on the table. So
Yeah,
obviously,
I'm
that's not
aware. You
entirely
just said
true.
that. Okay. I will say this. I definitely
Like a highway or something like that is not the same thing. That is very different from like Israel giving up Tel Aviv or something like that, or giving up the coastline. Like, so yeah.
No, I
And
agree.
again, that has been on the table.
So I guess I'll tell you what I think about what you said, which I don't think I disagree with a lot of it, and then I'll end it with a question. So I do agree that in the past you said genuine. I don't think they were genuine, but I do agree that there have been a few offers that were that Palestinians today that want a two-state solution would die to have, and they'll never have those offers. Never, ever, ever, right? and that's something that I didn't know, right? I learned that from watching Edward Said talking about it. So not exactly someone who's doesn't know what he's talking about, right? But I do also think that you are right that one of the biggest main hurdles to a two-state solution in that way is that Palestinians aren't willing to give up the right of return. And I guess the way you phrased it, you said that they're not willing to accept that there wouldn't be a right of return. And that, I think, would be our disagreement. Like, I don't think they necessarily should accept it. I understand that if they don't accept that the right of return isn't happening, they won't get any two-state solution resolution. The question that I
or
had,
way worse.
or I mean, we have way worse right now. So
Exactly.
Precisely.
Yeah, exactly.
The question that I had, though, do you agree? I assume you wouldn't, but that the more viable offers, for example, that used to be in the past, do you think that in the past, let's say, 15 years, Israel was or had the government or the leadership to give any viable two-state solutions?
So perhaps, because just within the last 15 years, there have been several different configurations of the government. So Bibi has been a huge presence in Israeli politics, but not one consistent thread. So potentially, but I also just reject the notion, like, and this is a bit more of a meta point too. I reject the notion that, like, it's just like on Israel should just keep like offering these things, right? Like, these are negotiations that do require two sides, good faith, and like some bit of trust. But also, the more meta point is, like, people talk all the time of, like, even like these countries that do this like virtue signaling of like declaring Palestine a state, like, okay, that's good and well, but they're not a state. And they should be. And I want them to be. And if we all want them to be, then we shouldn't pretend that they are a state right now. Like, I don't know who that really helps. Pretending that, like, that the Palestine exists within the 67 borders today and all of these nations recognizing this fact. But they don't. Who is it helping to pretend
They
in
don't
this way?
materially. It is a virtue signal in the sense of, like, we recognize Palestine, but it's not like we're going to have a Palestinian embassy or recognize their passport or give them anything materially for being
Well,
a
some
state.
of them do. Some of them do have Palestinian embassies and things of that nature. And again, I'm not opposed to that. But my point is, like, Israel can't give Palestine a state. Palestinians need to build a state. Israel can't declare, like, Israel can't even just pull out, and even if Israel just pulled out entirely of Gaza and the West Bank, and I
Never
mean
pull out, but
entirely,
go
every
ahead.
single last Jew, that still would not a Palestinian state make.
No, I agree that Israel can't give Palestinians a state, but I think the disagreement would be that I think, something like the disengagement when Ariel Sharon just pulled out unilaterally, and that didn't work out well because you can't just pull out and expect that to, as you said, be a Palestinian state make. Like, from my perspective, like the anti-Zionist.
Well, they did more than just pull out. They actually did try to facilitate. And I'm not saying the intentions were pure, but they didn't literally just pull out. Like, there was infrastructure in place to pass things along and have some type of transition into what could be a go at a Palestinian state. A test run.
I'd be
regardless for what Sharon's intentions might have been.
I'd be interested in hearing exactly what that infrastructure would look like, because that is not my understanding of what happened there. But
there was infrastructure existing, like all of the Jewish settlements in Gaza. Like, they didn't tear down in fact, it was Hamas who tore down and bombed all of the infrastructure there that would have
No. I thought you meant infrastructure in terms of, like, transferring governmental power and helping to facilitate governance and all those things, which is what I was going to say.
No, but they were trying to facilitate to a certain extent by allowing for self-governance in Gaza and attempting to have an election and things of that
Yes,
nature. So
exactly. So what I'm trying to say, which is what you said now, is that I don't think pulling out is enough. My argument would be that after pulling out, Israel would have to spend a lot of money and resources on helping to properly build an autonomous, successful Palestinian state. Not in terms of we're giving you this to control you, but like this will be a transfer of funds for the Palestinians to do what they want with it, not what Israel wants them to do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do have a
what
question.
They want with it.
I do have a question, so I don't just feel like eye candy here, right? Like I'm more than just a pretty face gang. Okay, I do have a question. Katee, do you think that can happen, right? That Israel can help build up and set Palestine as its own country. Do you think that can happen in any way, shape, or form while Hamas exists?
Oh, dude. You know how we said earlier that this is more of an interview type thing? I don't think Israel should exist. So I don't even know what you're asking me right now. Like, in the theoretical solution that I don't believe in or support, do I think Israel are going to benevolently
well, then let me ask you
give money?
Fair enough. Let me ask you then, like, how do you see Israel ceasing to exist? What do you think the process should look like?
Well, right now Israel is doing a genocide, so I don't think what I think in that way matters. I mean, last time I heard, Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan were abolished through World War II. I don't think that's going to happen here. I don't think there's going to be a military intervention to stop the genocide. And so I have no idea how Israel ceasing to exist would look like. Hopefully, maybe with an unlimited right of return. But,
yeah, I'm mostly asking, like, I understand that, like, right now we don't live in a world where that seems to be the case, but if you were queen for a day, you could wave a magic wand, right, and make the process that you want to see happen right now. Would you be in favor of a military invasion of Israel to stop them from genociding or whatever you think they're doing?
I mean, if I was queen for a day, I would just make Israel stop and abolish itself.
Okay. But you understand what I'm trying to get at.
Don't you think it would be more fun to live in reality, though?
It's just not.
Don't you think the conversation would be more interesting if you would grapple with realistic outcomes and possibilities?
I agree, but I was just told if you were queen of the world, what would you do? So I agree that's not very realistic or helpful, but that's what Wick wanted to do. So
fine, but being queen of the world, being queen of the world still wouldn't unless you're have superpowers, right? You could still make a decree, but there are still realities on the ground.
That's not what he meant.
Oh well.
Okay, I don't think that he was trying to get you to say in a different way that Israel shouldn't exist.
I could just say what the reason for the question is because I asked the question initially, right? Like, from a more realistic point, but you didn't want to answer that, and so I pulled it back to the queen for the day, and that's why we went there specifically. But I'm fine with just a realistic answer, right? Like, what do you see a realistic process for the dismantling of Israel as a state?
As I said, probably the most realistic thing.
Yep.
The most realistic thing. See, realistic doesn't work because, honestly, you would want America to abandon Israel, and I don't know how realistic that is. I don't think there's a realistic way to make that happen right now. I don't think there's enough political international interest in that.
Okay. I do want to make sure that I know we're mostly going to be with Katee and Tali here, but I do want to get Prime and Lonerbox in on this just a little. So they are also not just eye candy, even though neither of them has a camera on. So how are they going to be eye candy? But I want to give them each a chance. So go ahead.
I just wanted to interject on something that was said earlier about the Gaza withdrawal from Tali. Maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding is that not only did they not cooperate with the PA for any kind of establishment of self-governance, but didn't they also, when they withdrew, didn't a bunch of settlers burn down their greenhouses so that Gazans couldn't use them?
You're muted.
Sorry. If that happened, it's not my understanding that was anywhere near the majority of the infrastructure, and it's also my understanding that Hamas tore down the greenhouses. So that's like directly conflicting to my recollection. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I remember it like completely the inverse, that it was Hamas who tore down the greenhouses and things like that, not former Israeli settlers. But I'm open to being wrong there.
Might have to check, because my recollection, again, it's been a while, I thought they were looted by Palestinian locals, and I think houses, like settler houses, were burnt down and things like that. But I don't know if the I'm just curious about that aside. I'm mostly just curious about the like what infrastructure Israel was like trying to help Gaza with after the pullout in 2005. Because my understanding is that they just left without telling the PA anything, or like coordinating with them or anything of that sorts.
Okay, so I'm not saying that I'm not trying to. The reason that I said, even like regardless of Ariel Sharon's intentions of pulling out, I'm not saying that they were trying to facilitate a Palestinian state, or that they created infrastructure and they had any intention. What I was saying is that they didn't tear it down. So it was like, if again, this idea that like Israel just stepping away, just completely withdrawing would create a Palestinian state. Like there were institutions, and I'm talking like physical institutions, not like governing institutions, right? Like physical, like we're talking about the greenhouses and things like that, that could have just like literally be stepped into and inhabited already. So again, my understanding is not that it was burnt down by the settlers who were leaving. If that happened, then I'm just wrong here. But I'm not at all trying to pretend that Israel was trying to create a Palestinian state by withdrawing in 2005. I'm just saying that they weren't trying to. I don't believe that they were trying to torch it either.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Torch it figuratively
That's for you,
too.
Loner. I'll DM it to you. It's in Hebrew, but just click translate to English.
Oh no. Okay, let's see.
I condemn it if it's on the Israeli side, either way. But what you were saying, Katee, about now, maybe this is like sort of a moot point because you don't think that Israel should exist. But what you were saying is that Israel shouldn't just withdraw; they have an affirmative responsibility and financial responsibility to invest in a Palestinian state. I don't inherently disagree with that. I maintain that it should not be the sole responsibility of Israel, and I don't really think that.
I agree.
Yeah, it shouldn't be the sole responsibility of Israel to create a Palestinian state and to make all of these investments. But yeah, there are plenty of Israelis who would agree with that too. That Israel should be financially responsible for repatriation of Palestinians potentially back to a Palestinian state. I mean,
many is I might differ with that word, but yeah, some Israelis might think that.
I mean, the Israeli left is not insignificant.
I heavily disagree with that, but yeah, that's I sent you that link too. So basically, the burning down thing is a little bit more complicated. It's a known Israeli talking point that the greenhouses were left for them to use, and then they were destroyed by Hamas. The truth is that they were kind of bought from the Israeli settlers, but not really, and then it didn't really work out, and so they didn't end up using a lot of the greenhouses. So,
sure, and again, I didn't mean to insinuate that they left them there for their use, but more so that they were there at least. So
yeah. Prime, anything before we keep going?
Well, okay. And again, I don't want to derail this. But Tali, I like that you think that it should be an international effort to make a Palestinian state. I would agree to. I mean, Israel has a small GDP. I wouldn't put it all in their hands. Well, the Egyptian recovery plan that I was talking about previously talks about, hey, international community coming together, investing in rebuilding Gaza. I think that's a fine first step. Go ahead.
The international community is currently actively invested in Palestine, in Palestinian aid. So that wouldn't be a very hard lift. I think what we need is leadership.
To get them to
Palestinian
stop funding the bombing first, yes.
Correct. That's not corrupt. Not just right. Not just funding bombing, but also lining their pockets. Right. I mean, living like kings in other countries while their people are suffering on the ground. So.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I think that those other Arab states, they have their own interests, and it's all rife with corruption once money is flowing. But I think the first step would be, hey, understanding there is a need, allowing the money to come in, allowing work to be done, and then that could be a model for further investments in that direction.
Yeah, sure. That just can't happen until Hamas is gone. But yeah, absolutely. I totally support that effort. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
It won't be safe to do. Like, again, it just here's I guess the point that I'm trying to make, and that I feel like is the frustration that Lonerbox and I share. That just won't happen. Like, if you leave Hamas in control, then the international aid is not going to be able to come in and overpower them.
But I keep saying not in control. You keep saying in control.
We
have a fundamental
maintain
disagreement.
Their arms.
But
yeah, it's
Tali,
not Hamas. It's if maintain their arms. Notice, Prime.
Yeah, Tali. Like, and I'm not trying to be like
sorry,
obtuse.
Katie, you missed the debate. Prime is specifically talking about a proposal that would allow the Qassam brigades, Hamas, to maintain their arms in Gaza as part of a ceasefire plan, where then international aid comes in and international peacekeeping comes in to rebuild Gaza. That's the specific option on the table. I'm not being pedantic. This is his.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just a quick question: would the IDF be allowed to maintain their arms during the ceasefire?
Yes. What do you mean maintain?
Then
yes,
I don't
of course. Yes,
the
IDF. Okay. Then you don't really want the conditions to change, because they won't change.
Tali, I'm not trying to be obtuse. I swear I'm not trying to do that, right? I'm just pointing, just like my friend Doobie previously pointed to how, like, the IRA at first did completely demilitarize the moment they made a peace deal, right? It was a multi-phase process. That is the realistic goal. Is that you say, hey, like, for instance, the ceasefire that was just implemented, right? In that ceasefire, ceasefire,
why don't we allow the Palestinian Authority to put in police forces, and so that it is Palestinian
1 second,
control.
hold on.
They're able to maintain
hold on. Hold on, 1 second.
Some sort.
I would love that, hold on. But that first of all, the Egypt plan does talk about putting the Palestinian Authority in charge. The Egypt plan does talk about putting the Palestinian Authority in charge. But beyond that, right?
Can't do that with Hamas.
The ceasefire. 1 second. The ceasefire that was previously announced, right, that Israel unilaterally broke, that didn't have Hamas immediately put down their weapons, because of course that wasn't going to happen, right? It was a multi-phase process in which both sides would have to accomplish certain concrete goals and then take a step forward.
Yeah, if you continue doing that, plan. Yes, the ceasefire wasn't a peace plan. It's an attempt. These are attempts to barter back for hostages.
Hold on, but I'm talking, the Gaza recovery plan isn't a peace plan either. It's a ceasefire, right? It's a ceasefire that goes into rebuilding.
That's not a ceasefire. That's
I'm sorry. I'm a little confused. What do you? Could you explain, please?
Okay, sure. Well, we need a resolution to this war.
Sure.
Okay.
So the Gaza. The Egypt plan does call for a resolution, right? Like, or resolution to the immediate conflict, not like the overall resolution to the Israeli-Palestine problem.
The conflict doesn't end if the Qassam brigades are armed on the southern border of Israel.
Sure. Well,
conflict doesn't end.
I mean, the conflict existed before Hamas existed. I'm pretty sure the conflict will exist without Hamas. So.
Yeah, you're saying that there is
right now in Gaza won't be happening.
You're saying that there's a bad
Palestinians in Gaza wouldn't be happening without Hamas right now.
I'll let Katie handle it. So I'll just leave.
Yeah, let Katie go.
I'm enjoying this, Prime. Go ahead. This is fun.
I'm sorry. Again, Tali, that's why I didn't mean to take anything over. If because I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry, the Qassam brigades, those brigades. I apologize. If they do a thing that breaks the peace, right? Then it'll be the Palestinians that suffer. It'll be them that will have reprisals. And they will have a force again because we would have international forces, like UN security forces. They'll have to contend with these individuals and these organizations. There will be a cost one way or the other. It could also be the case that, let's say we go with this Egypt plan. It could also be the case that once again Israel unilaterally breaks the agreement, right? It could also be that could be a thing that happens, right? But we understand this, but we go into these things extending a tiny level of good faith to begin the process. When people show that they aren't
No good
capable,
faith with Hamas.
okay,
Well,
if you keep saying that,
here,
then there is no resolution ever, period. Because like Hamas is made up of these individuals who have who are now militarily aggressive against Israel after all of this October 7th, right? It's refilled its ranks with all these members who have a grudge. If there's no chance for peace, right, then that means that the only option is slaughter. I don't believe that. I don't believe that all Israelis, the Jews have to die in Israel, and I don't believe all Muslims have to die in Palestine. I don't believe that.
Yeah, I want to let Lebanon.
I don't think the Christians should die either.
Keep calling you Lebanon. I'm so sorry. Loner box. I want to let Loner box go ahead.
So in this Egyptian plan, in your world, the Qassam brigades retain their arms, but they give up civil control. And then the other armed forces that come in are what, like the Americans, maybe the UN, peacekeepers, maybe some Arab forces. So what are the, okay, is that am I following you so far?
But sure, whatever the exact outlines. I'm not like stuck on which, like the exact militaries that have to be involved. It could be any particular mix.
Like Saudi,
but yeah, I think that's
Egyptian,
a workable plan.
UN, okay.
Yeah, whatever the mix might happen to be.
Governmental control, but keep their arms? What?
This is what Prime and Doobie were advocating for during the debate, yeah.
Okay, keep going. This is fun.
Westerners, eh? Am I right? Anyway, so, okay, in this world then, Hamas goes into the tunnels, finds some spare rocket launchers or mortars and fires them. Who stops them?
The same people who would stop the IDF from firing into or killing Palestinians within that territory, right? Like it would have to be an international response.
So international response from either like Arab armies or the UN, right?
Sure.
Okay, so are we willing to concede that the UN had a mandate to do this in Lebanon and they completely fucking failed at it? It was the Lebanese army.
Israel or Hezbollah?
To stop Hezbollah from. This is when the UN, when UNIFIL were in there from 2006 onwards up until 2023, and their role was to stop Hezbollah from rearming south of the Litani, and they didn't do it.
Was that can you source me that? I'd be really interested.
Well, the UNIFIL's job was to
peacekeep.
Yeah.
Okay, so for you, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, keep going.
Because of Resolution 1701, which was that Hezbollah doesn't maintain arms south of the Litani, no?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. So I guess it would probably most likely be like Egyptian or Saudi troops that would fight back against Hamas if they were trying to break the ceasefire in this situation. You okay with that, Prime?
Yeah.
Right. Why would that be different from the IDF doing it?
Why would it be different from a government that is dedicated to the genocidal eradication of the Palestinians? Why would it be different from the government that's why would it be different from the government that's currently doing an ethnic cleansing? I don't know. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, no, actually, why would the Saudis be better with their bombs than the IDF? Have you seen what the Saudis did in Yemen?
Oh, well, my understanding is the Saudis, if they were going to be part of this, like the Saudis aren't necessarily an enemy of the Palestinians. Like they were the enemy of the Yemenis.
Well, they were became an enemy of the Houthis because the Houthis were firing at them. But yeah, like again, they went intervene in Yemen because
and if coalition forces are acting improperly, well, they should be removed as well, right? That's why we have an international community keeping everyone in check.
Wait. Let's try this in good faith. Lonerbox, I think you understand what Prime is saying, right? He's saying that whoever is doing the peacekeeping in the region, it doesn't have a direct hand in the conflict and is only there. It's not going to act in retribution, right? The problem is Americans are not going to stop the IDF from doing anything. And I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that you don't necessarily trust the Saudis to
Both of these women need to get birth control.
properly manage Hamas tunnels. Am I wrong?
I'm just saying, and maybe I know that I understand why you or Prime might never get this, but if the Saudis were in Gaza maintaining law and order and they come against radical Islamists who oppose their endeavors, the Saudis would be a million times more brutal than Israel would. Yeah.
If the
I
Saudis
didn't
are not,
advocate for bringing in peacekeeping UN. The UN has never peace kept anything that had military stuff within it.
if the Saudis are not appropriate partners for this, then don't pick the Saudis. Like I said, I'm not married to any particular force, right? Like, so you're saying, well, the Saudis might be belligerent, might be aggressive against Palestinians. Okay, I can accept that. Whatever. Like when we're putting together these forces, obviously we take that for granted. You can always point to, like, and this is not like a new thing. We've done this before in the past, right? Like, so we can, unless you think, let me ask you, right? Do you think that there is never a possibility, like, let's move away from Israel-Palestine just for a quick second, that there's never a possibility in any conflict for a peacekeeping force to be useful? Is that your position?
No, peacekeeping forces can be useful. The problem
Okay.
is that they have the same challenge that the IDF has, and they're going to treat
they
it
don't.
either more incompetently or they're going to treat it more aggressively. Like, it's the problem is that the only people who actually have an incentive to destroy that Hamas infrastructure and risk their soldiers' lives for it is the IDF. No one else is going to want to do this. So when you're saying when Hamas is armed, all of these plans, like these rebuilding plans and everything else, they only work with Hamas's military.
I didn't say that you
out of the
necessarily
way.
destroyed Hamas infrastructure unless they are using it to break the agreement. So that I wouldn't be asking them that any which way, unless aggressive actions were taken. Then there might be a response. But no, beyond that, yeah, like, I think there's a reason why we have third parties here, right? Of course, they're going to operate differently than like the two belligerent actors, right? Like there is racism and hatred and bigotry on both sides of this conflict, right? And that expresses itself through its military, expresses itself through its policies. That's why you have third.
Lonerbox is saying the third party won't actually be able to act very differently because they're going to run into the same problem. So even if you pick the dovest nation, the people who are
Canadians.
Palestinian,
Bunch
people
of
who love
Canadians.
Palestinians, they are going to they're going to run into the same problems. Even if they would want to handle it differently than the IDF, they're going to run into the same problems with Hamas.
This assumes that
I don't think they're going to
IDF
destroy entire cities full of civilians, but yes, with
Yeah,
the tunnels,
exactly.
Okay,
So-
yes, you've just highlighted the problem, though. This is the problem that you would have, really, is that you would have like a more dovish peace force, or maybe like an Arab state that doesn't want to be seen killing a bunch of Palestinians. So what you'd see Hamas breaking the ceasefire and Hamas like trying to frustrate this normalization process.
Or you see Israel breaking the ceasefire.
Hang on,
right?
Because
like, or you see Israel breaking the ceasefire.
Let Loner finish his thought.
They actually broke the ceasefire.
We can get to that, okay? Hamas broke a ceasefire.
Oh, you don't want to get to that.
Okay.
We can get to that, I said. I'm just telling you right now, okay? And I can explain why but Israel did it in this situation is like not helpful at all for testing your scenario. With your scenario, you've got Hamas still have their arms, okay? And then there's another force that's trying to rebuild, to actually build Gaza in an image that's not the same way that Hamas built it. And it's not in a way that the Israeli occupation built it, because it's preparing them for statehood so that Gaza can exist as part of a Palestinian state alongside Israel. Like, that would be the point of doing that. The problem is that if Hamas who has every incentive to frustrate that process, because that's the opposite of what they want, they will fire, they will try to break that, they will try to frustrate that process. And what would happen is Hamas would be in the tunnels, okay? Because that's where they are. And some other army that's more dovish would look at that and think, okay, fuck, there's no way we can get to this tunnel. We're not sending our soldiers in to fucking booby traps and tunnel warfare. We can't bomb it because there's like civilians in the area, so we're just not going to do anything. That's what would happen, yeah.
So you just keep stating that, both you and Tali. I'm going to say one last thing, then I'll be done. you and Tali simply keep stating this as facts, right? Oh, I can look into the future, and of course, the peace process wouldn't work, right? The peace process that
No,
have been
you
repeated.
guys are just naive.
No, hold on. Okay, so you can keep stating that, right? And say like, oh, I have a better view of all of this, right? Even though in the past we've actually accomplished this, like we've actually gone through peace process. This isn't a new process.
Yeah, but you keep using examples like South Africa and
this
Ireland. You
isn't
keep
a
using South
new
Africa and Ireland,
process.
which have like you. So the fact that you tried
This
to refer
isn't
to South
a
Africa in the
new.
past, the fact that
This
you tried to refer
isn't
to
a
South
new
Africa as your
process.
analogy, just like
This isn't a new process. Once again, it's not a new process. And then you simply state, well, this is what Hamas would do. We know exactly what Hamas actions would take, right? What the international community would take, right? You just keep stating this and hoping to make it reality within the confines of this conversation. I reject it. I refuse it.
Okay,
I say
do you
the
agree
opposite.
that- do you agree that one of the- what was the motivation for 7?
I say
Well,
if anyone's going to break this, it's going to be the Israelis, right? They
What
have
was
shown
Hamas trying
again
to
and again
break
that they're
with October 7th?
untrustworthy force. So why should we trust them? Still, even with that in mind, I still want to give the process a try. Even though I know the Israelis are not trustworthy, we should still give the process a try.
What was Hamas trying to do on October 7th?
Interrupt the Abrams Accords, right? Like they
Okay.
felt that the Arabic world was abandoning them, right? Ignoring the Palestinian question. And one of the things they wanted to do was to interrupt that.
And it's another serious thing that you're missing out, that your plan would entail, your Egyptian plan would entail, and it's normalization with Israel. There'll be a process of normalization, which is the worst thing for Hamas. I'm not saying Hamas would do this because I'm just guessing, okay? I'm doing it because normalization is Hamas's biggest fucking
wanna give
enemy.
it to Katie.
And they've been a rejectionist party from the cradle to the grave, okay? I'm not basing this on nothing.
So
You're
the
basing your
Israelis say the
assumptions on
same
nothing.
thing.
Okay,
I've
hold
read
on,
you
hold on.
the
No.
genocidal statement.
Give it to Katie. Give it to Katie. Go ahead, Katie.
Loner Bucks. So are you going to do this thing where I say, but Hamas has released a statement that they said that if that it was put to a vote with Palestinian people and the Palestinian people chose a two-state solution, they would support it. You're just simply going to say that you don't believe them, correct?
Well, that would be them changing their messaging from the last 15, 20 years.
Okay, but
acknowledge that?
they have
That would be a
released that
change.
statement. So do you believe it or not?
No.
They've said that if their population
not.
goes to a vote, they'll accept a two-state solution. Who said
Do
this?
you believe that statement or not?
It depends on who said it. Who said it? If it's like a random fucking...
Yeah, Tali, you want to say something?
No, it's just like they didn't say that.
Okay.
That
If
doesn't
they
exist.
said it,
Okay. So
Yeah,
Lonerbox, you've been
here's my answer. So if Hamas actually came with if Hamas just went into this like unprecedented level of soul searching and resurrection and came out as a party that was willing to accept a normalization with Israel into a two-state solution, actually with mutual recognition, and a leader came and said that, and he didn't get fucking shot by his comrades like 2 days later, then yeah, I'd maybe be more inclined to think, okay, maybe something's changed here. The problem is that all of these changes that you see from Hamas, it's always like equivocating, it's always like meandering, like with the 2017 charter, or with people saying, oh yeah, we'll give up civilian control but not our arms, right? Yeah, or like maybe one low-level official goes on to like some like very like small news broadcaster and says, oh yeah, we'll kind of consider like we might be up for a two states solution, and then like another leader just rebukes it the day after. This is not the same as like a radical shift, but what you're saying is their entire worldview since their inception would be changing if this is the case.
So can I?
I mean, I agree with you, except that Israel does the same thing. Israel had multiple governments and multiple MKs and multiple prime ministers make different statements about whether they support a two-state solution or not. I know you don't like when I equivocate the Israeli government to Hamas, but in terms of contradicting statements, it's not like, everyone does that. It's
but what's that's the difference. What's the solution with the Israeli government is you vote them out. The solution for Hamas is you can't vote them out. No one can vote them out. They have to be removed. Like that's the difference.
Okay.
I do have a question for you, Lonerbox, actually, because you said something a little bit ago that I want to come back to about how if there was a third party, more dovish peacekeeping force, right, there in the area, that they wouldn't be able to stop Hamas from doing it. So I guess that implies, at least to me, and you can clarify, that the level of brutality necessary to stop Hamas needs to be something like what IDF is doing. Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly what the IDF is doing, but I think the problem that people run into is that in order to target anything that Hamas uses or infrastructure or personnel, it involves a level of collateral that most, I think, Western countries and democracies and all that would just be very uncomfortable with. They wouldn't want to do it. Because this happened in Mosul as well, right? And ISIS were a lot smaller and a lot less dug in than Hamas are. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't buy that at all.
I don't think things would look I think if Israel was acting within international law completely in all of their airstrikes and campaigns, I don't think it would be it would be different from what we're seeing now, but I don't think it would be world-changingly different. No.
Okay.
Sorry, I just have to keep going back to this point because you guys keep ignoring this and moving past it very quickly. So, and Tali is away.
Donor box, I sent you a link for the statement.
So I'll direct this at you, Lunar Box, and hopefully Tali can answer this later on, right? So there, she's back. So there was a peace agreement between a ceasefire. Ceasefire.
Okay, wait. I'm so sorry. I'm just looking at the first paragraph of this article. The Palestinian militant group Hamas has said for more than 15 years that it could accept a two-state compromise with Israel, at least a temporary one. But Hamas has also refused to say that it would recognize Israel or renounce its armed fight against it. Does it change here? Do they say that they're reneging
now
on this?
Now read the second paragraph.
Okay. For Israel and many others, especially in the wake of Hamas' October 7th attack that spurred the latest war in Gaza, that's proof that Hamas is still irrevocably bent on destroying Israel. The United States and European countries have joined Israel in shunning the militant group they've labeled a terrorist organization. Is there more? I'll just read the whole thing. Hang on.
Can I get a link to this document?
Yeah.
Please. I don't know what we're reading. I don't know what we're looking at, so.
Sorry, I got a call from my wife. She's the final boss.
Oh, shout out to her.
Everything okay?
Oh yeah, we're good.
Continue. Fair enough.
They're not getting a divorce, okay? All right, Wick. But Tali, so while we're waiting on Lonerbox, he's reading. So we had a ceasefire.
No. I'll read it out for you.
Okay, all right.
I sent it to Lonerbox, so I know he'll find it. I even screenshotted it. In the latest iteration of its stance, senior Hamas official Khalil El-Hayya told the Associated Press in an interview on Wednesday the group would lay down its weapons and convert into a political party if an independent Palestinian state is established in the West Bank and Gaza Strip along the pre-1967 borders. This article is from April 25th, 2024.
And why do you think I'm going to say that this is not what you earlier said it was?
What do you mean? Is this senior enough official for you?
Yeah. What do you think I'm going to say is wrong? What do you think I'm going to say is wrong with this?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. So you should stop making the arguments about
what do you
trying
think I'm
to...
going to... Sorry, wait.
Hey, you asked me a question, so I'll answer it. My answer is, if you're going to make arguments that Hamas is going to agitate if there's a solution for two states, and you have a senior official saying that they are willing to go with a two-state solution if that's the one that they're going for, then you're lying.
No, not at all. I just want to know if you've been listening to a fucking word I've been saying. When I spoke about the 2017 charter and the problem with Hamas whenever they say two states is what? This is not the first time they've said we'll do two states. What's the issue with that?
So the issue with that is that they sometimes say one thing and then say another thing?
Nope.
Okay, then tell me.
So as per the 2017 statement, when they say two states, they mean two states for now, so we can use that state as an opportunity to try again later. What happens if Hamas gets a two states out of this? They claim victory within their own people. They become the most popular, or they remain actually with even more popularity, the most popular faction in the region. What does a state have? A state has arms. Hamas they have arms in a state in this situation. This is not them. The problem with saying two states is not just two states, it's two states for now. The difference is, and this is what Arafat recognized, the reason that Arafat, who also spoke about two states for quite a while before 1988, the thing that changed it was that he offered recognition of Israel. That's not there in Hamas because it's two states for now. Like I've always said, there's nothing here that contradicts anything I think
Fine.
about Hamas's positions on two states.
Okay, no problem. Oh, then we
This is
just
also-
disagree.
this is
I
also
don't
what I
think
was
there's any.
saying.
Sorry, Tali. I just want to complete my point. Then I guess our disagreement is just that when you say two states, you actually mean two state, but one when Hamas isn't in power, because if they're in power, they will have a military now, and then they'll aggress against Israel. Okay.
I mean, two states with mutual recognition, which is what Resolution 242 says. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that so much to ask?
Yeah.
Hold on, why?
I'm an anti-Zionist. What do you mean?
Oh no,
Sorry.
what does maybe I'm not sure. Maybe I'm ignorant. Zionist. When you say Zionist, what do you mean, Katee? I'm just really curious.
I said I'm an anti-Zionist.
Yeah, but okay. What's a Zionist to you? So I know what you're against.
Zionism, as far as I address it, is basically a support for the Jewish state of Israel, so the ethno-state of Israel on Palestinian land. Okay, so in historical Palestine. Cool.
Okay. I think I understand. Go on with that.
Prime, I interrupted you. Prime, I interrupted you.
Well, you interrupted
No.
Tali, but you know.
Well, again, I'll ask Lorna, Box, and Tali. Ceasefire earlier this year between Hamas and Israel. Who broke that ceasefire?
Technically, they both did, but obviously Israel was the one that ended it.
Israel unilaterally ended that. Okay, Tali, who ended that?
Sure, Israel ended it, but again, this idea that like Hamas
Okay. Great, so
observes
Wait,
the
Prime.
ceasefire.
Prime.
So-
What happened just before they? What happened just before they ended the ceasefire?
I don't know what you're going to be referring to, so you why don't you just tell me?
Israel also there have been ceasefires in this war that Israel maintained the ceasefire even when Hamas started shooting rockets into Israel during the ceasefire. So this idea that
Also-
that Israel is the one that we can't trust to maintain the
No, I'm saying that both
the agreement
no,
here is just
to be clear, what I actually believe is that both sides in a war, right, have reasons to break those agreements, right? I expect that of both sides.
what's the reason
and-
for,
Yeah,
what's
but
the
what's the
reason for
what-
Hamas to launch what's the reason for
So-
Hamas to
Sorry,
launch
but
missiles
before
into Israel?
before we get to that, right? So there was another agreement between Israel and Hezbollah, right? After that conflict ended, right? That ceasefire agreement. Who was violating that ceasefire? Was Israel not bombing Lebanon after the ceasefire went into effect?
Wait, do you think Israel bombing Lebanon is automatically a violation of that ceasefire?
No, but I think it was a violation. I don't
Wait,
think it's
why?
automatically. I think it just happened
Why was
to be.
why was it a?
Because of
why
course
was it a violation?
we're supposed to pull back.
Wait,
Why
is it not automatically then? Why is Israel bombing Lebanon not automatically
the
a violation of the ceasefire?
Under the initial terms of the agreement that brought about a ceasefire between Israel and the Lebanese group Hezbollah in November, the former was to withdraw its forces from southern Lebanon by January 26. The date came and went, but Israel has refused to pull back its military, and the deadline has instead been pushed to February 18th. Israel has also continued to sporadically bomb areas in Lebanon. To mass denunciations from the latter, claim that it is targeting Hezbollah for violations of the ceasefire.
Yeah, so the extensions they pulled out slower than they initially said they would. Okay.
Okay,
Well,
so that'd be a violation.
why is them bombing Lebanon? Why is that a violation of the ceasefire?
Because they were supposed to pull out their forces
Pulling
and
out slower
ceasefire.
is also a violation of the ceasefire.
That's a violation in of itself.
Why is bombing?
Sorry,
Why was bombing a
but-
violation
hey,
of breaking the ceasefire?
Hey, Loner
That's what I
Box. Give me the answer you want. I'm not going to play 20 questions with you. Give me the answer that you want, then I can respond to
I
whatever
don't know.
you're saying.
Do you I don't know. Do you not read the terms? You can just read the terms. It's like a one pager, and like it's all there. Yeah.
If you got something to say, then say it.
The terms of the ceasefire were that if Hezbollah moved south, then it would firstly be expected to be the Lebanese army's or UNIFIL's job to deal with that military moving back south of the Litani. However, if Israel perceived that they were not doing that, then they would have the right. They would have the right to strike it, and they did. They would reserve the right. Yeah, that ceasefire was like, those terms were awful for Hezbollah. It basically said that Israel can bomb Lebanon if Hezbollah tries to move south or tries to rebuild their defenses up in Dahia. Like it gave Israel the right to do that.
I
It's not
appreciate
it's not like
you.
a breaking.
I appreciate you, but it is painful to me that out of all the people here, I disagree with you most. Do you know what that feels like? It's very painful.
What did I say about the terms of the ceasefire that were wrong? I'm just being descriptive of what the terms are. Did you read them? Then why are you getting so mad at me? What the fuck? Just read the terms. I don't know. Fuck. Like, and even right now, you know, like the reason
Hey,
that the
what are you
bombings are.
disagreeing with?
Me?
What are you disagreeing with? Yeah.
Oh, I'm very disappointed in Prime and Doobie. They're like lib shitting the fuck out of this with really dumb lib ideas. That's not good advocacy. I don't like it. But that's a separate conversation. I'm here for
Oh,
you.
I thought you were saying that to Lonerbox. I might have missed
No,
a
no, I
step
meant
there.
Prime. I'm mad at Prime.
Oh, I'm so
Oh,
sorry. I
oh,
just
none
lashed
of
out at you
us
for no
got that.
reason then.
Okay.
Oh,
We
you were
all missed
talking
that.
to me.
Sorry.
It's fine. I thought you were yelling at Prime.
I was very
Oh.
curious too, but no, that makes no. Now I'm curious. What are you disagreeing with Prime?
I'm here for Tali. If I want to yell at
Oh,
Prime, I'll
okay,
just do it
okay,
later.
Okay, you
Prime
can
is a lib tuck.
liberal centrist.
So what? Do you think they made too many
Prime.
concessions?
Got you. Okay, but no, go ahead. If you
What,
have more questions
Prime
for
and
Tali, go
Doobie?
ahead, please.
Yeah.
I mean, from what when Lonerbox came in and said that Prime and Doobie were offering like that weird plan with like the UN peacekeeping and like Hamas leaving their arms but not being a governmental thing. It's fine. Libs take time. They're still working through that. It's fine. Whatever.
So
Do you think Egyptians are libs?
I think Egyptians are collaborators and they're not my allies.
That's right. Those dirty
Checkmate. That's
Arabs
true.
working
They
with
are
the
libs.
Jews.
I think
Al-Sisi is a massive shit lib. What are you talking about? He's an American fucking product.
I think for the purposes of this conversation, I have like refrained from like first of all, I hadn't gotten to take things where I wanted to go. But like if we are talking in terms of like the immediate response, right, as to what should be done, right? Like, hey, like what is your plan to respond to this immediate crisis? No, I'm fine with what I've said so far, right? Like, do I think Israel has a some inherent right to exist? No, actually, I don't. Not at all. Do I think that? I think that states do exist
What
beyond that,
nations
right? As a
do have?
practical, no one, no states have the simple right
okay.
to exist. They simply do through a matter of force, right? The United States exists because it can maintain itself. If it can't maintain itself, then it doesn't exist. It has no divine right to its land or to
Does
to anything else.
Palestine not
Unfortunately,
exist?
right now, no, it doesn't. Right? That's why force
No,
needs
I
to
think
be
she means does
applied.
Palestine have a right to exist?
No, as a right.
Well, no, actually, I meant does it
Oh,
exist?
never mind. I was wrong.
At this
But
current
I wasn't
moment, no,
sure.
it doesn't. It doesn't exist.
Sure,
It can't
yeah, that
mean-
is a good
Sure.
a good point. And you know, I'm sure he'll walk it back or not walk it back, but he'll say, well, no, in the same way that no state has a right to exist. But people talk all the time about, oh, I don't want this ethno state Israel while supporting an ethno Palestinian state. Like I'm anti-nationalism, but I
No,
support
Who is
Palestinian
supporting
nationalism.
an ethno-Palestinian?
I recognize
Yeah.
that my two interlocutors here
I'm fine with a.
have encountered this before and know how
Yeah.
to deal with
I
the
can
question, but I
guarantee
mean,
you,
it's a
Prime
just blatant
and Prime will
hypocrisy.
speak to himself for himself. But Prime does not support an ethno state of Palestinians like Israel is. Okay, that's not
That's
what
what it
he
would
means.
be.
There's again with that's what it would be. That's a different thing. I don't support an ethno state for Palestinians either. I don't want to knock off Israel, but for Palestinians.
Okay,
Which
so you don't believe
which
in
ethnic
Palestinian
group?
self-determination?
Which ethnic group do you think
I
Palestinians would
do. I'm
prefer?
just not as racist enough to think that them having self-determination means that they'll make an ethno state like Israelis did. That's all.
What if they say it?
If they
What if they
say
say
it,
what if they do want it? What if they do want it? Then you would be against the self-determination of Palestine.
no,
You don't believe that they deserve the right to self-determination.
no, they deserve the right of self-determination all the way. It just doesn't mean that I'll support their government the same way that I don't support Israel's.
What if it's not the government? Again, what if it's like the people? I mean, just like what if the will of the people is to live amongst themselves, is to have an entirely Arab Palestinian state?
That's fine. A lot of countries have a lot of wills. I can think that's cringe.
Okay.
So
you just think Israel's
I don't know if it's like crystal balling or anything to just say that, like, if Palestine becomes a state, the only group that's getting to be the majority in that state is Palestinians, right? I don't even know if one Jew would be allowed in that state anytime soon. No? Maybe Chomsky.
No, Lonerbox, that's very racist of you to assume.
Yeah, I know.
It is
Yes,
racist of you to assume. Yeah,
hold on. No, Prime, are you being serious right now?
Yeah, I'm being fucking serious.
Yes, you're being
Actually,
serious
yeah.
that it's racist to assume that if Palestine were to take over, they achieve their statehood, Israel lays down its arms and disbands, and Palestinians get their statehood, that it's racist to assume that Jews would be allowed to Jews wouldn't be allowed to live there. Right, or at least not as first class.
Yeah, just like it was racist to assume. I'll say it again, hon. I want to respond. Let me respond to what Rick just said.
Let Prime answer my question. I'm really curious.
Yeah, just like it was racist to assume that African Americans would genocide white Americans in the United States, right? As soon as we let them out of chains, right, that they would slaughter white Americans. It was racist to assume that black South Africans would genocide the white South Africans, right? Like the conflicts happen all the time.
Okay, if
right?
I may respond.
Do you know what's more racist?
Hold on.
I'm bulldozing you once, Wick, okay? Really quickly. Do you know what's more racist? Is hearing a group and have its most popular faction literally say what they want to do, demonstrate that they would do it, not even too recently, and then the
Israelis, I agree, right? The Israelis have said over and over again that they want to genocide the Palestinians. However, I can look at Israelis. I don't assume that, hon, you're not going to bowl me over.
I've lost control, gang. I've lost control.
So I would not assume of Israelis, right, that they are incapable of peace, right? So it's not going to happen, right? So I'm not going to do the racist thing. I'm not going to say that Israeli Jews are incapable of listening to their better angels, right? I'm not going to say that Palestinians are some brutal group who just can't understand peace and must genocide these individuals. There are going to be factions within these groups that will have those intentions, and that will never change. Absolutely,
the problem
right?
Here,
but that doesn't mean that.
Hold on. The other incidences that you have mentioned, such as with Black African Americans were enslaved, when you had the South African, you had a majority of the people in these cases asking to live in peace with the native population, live in peace with the other people in the population, whether it be American citizens. They just wanted to be seen as people. In the Israel and Palestine conflict, you do not have that. Palestinians and Hamas specifically, I'll let you respond in a second. Let me finish.
Sorry. Okay.
Palestinian leadership in Hamas specifically has said, that's not our goal. We don't want that. We want to expel them.
So, Wick, yeah, I had a response, and I said it multiple times during debate, but Zionists, of course, want to ignore these things. When we were talking about these conflicts, right? Like ending these conflicts, it isn't, hey, we end things tomorrow, right? And we put it in a state the next day, right? And wow, look, from the opinion polls, I guess it's not going to work, right? Like that, no matter what the conflict, whether it's a military conflict, even if it's a societal conflict, at some point in time, right, you would have it'd been true to say, well, the polls say that, heterosexuals will never accept homosexual marriage, right? So why even bother? I mean, we put that in place today, right? We might have riots.
The homosexuals are asking to be treated like equals.
Let me finish answer your question, right? So this is hold on. Let me finish. So this is I'm talking about in small conflicts like that, right? Or in bigger conflicts. Right now, when there is belligerence, when there is bombs falling and famine happening and villages being bulldozed, fuck yes, they're going to say they hate each other. Absolutely they will, because that's the only natural thing to do. Yeah, I hate the people who are doing this to me. However, right? However, that doesn't mean that within a longer time frame, when we're putting in a peace process and both sides are actually making small steps, right, concrete steps to increase that when you give people the option for peace, they won't take that peace, right? There isn't nothing inherent in Palestinians that say that they hate Jews, that they want to exterminate Jews, and the same way from Jews to Palestinians, right? These people aren't inherent. I don't essentialize them because I'm not a fucking racist. So
Okay,
that's why
no one has essentialized. I don't think it's in Palestinian DNA to not want to share power with it. That you're just
yeah,
projecting
but
that on
pretty
me.
much. But there's no
No,
other
it's
choice.
not pretty
But
much.
in the end,
It's not pretty
it would
much.
just be
It's not pretty
inevitable.
much. Okay, so for example,
No.
you're doing. So you just said that for in our debate that you were up for Israel getting pressured by international sanctions and like a level of isolation to push them towards accepting equality and like one person, one vote with Palestinians. You said that earlier, no?
I did indeed.
Okay. Do you think Palestinians should be pressured by the international community to accept living as one person, one vote with Israelis?
Once they get their own state.
They can be pressured now. They get international aid
once
from different
they get their
organizations.
own
What are you talking
fucking
about?
State, then you can pressure them.
Okay, so only one side needs to get pressured. Okay, interesting.
Decide with a fucking state, you coward. Come on.
Why is that cowardly? What are you talking about? Like, what? So
You are
so we should pressure Israel to one person,
you are
one vote,
smart
and the
enough to
Palestinians can reject it,
understand-
and then we just
You
like
are
where do we
smart
go from
enough
there?
to understand the difference between having a state on an international stage and not having a state. It's not that complicated. I know you're smart enough to grasp that.
Yeah,
So
but you can
yes,
still pressure
non-states.
when the situation is asymmetrical, the international response should also be asymmetrical. If you
I
want
didn't say
to
it should be
equalize it,
symmetrical.
go fucking ahead.
I didn't say you should be symmetrical. I'm just saying, like,
This
it's not
panel is a
impossible
war
to
crime,
pressure a
gang.
non-state.
I
What does
didn't
Prime
say
think?
that
I
it's
wanna-
not
Panel is a war
impossible.
crime.
I said that you want to do it now, and I said, of course you do. It's more convenient for Zionists if you do so. Give them a state, then you can do all the fucking little international mumbo jumbo too.
Okay, so this is still qualifies as LARPing in the West.
Right.
Definitely
Sorry, I don't know.
still
Are you in the
qualifies.
West?
Thank you, Miss American.
Katie's
I
Israeli.
appreciate that you accept my LARPing.
I also heard her take grave offense to being referred to as a member of the tribe and completely denounce her Jewishness. So this idea that like, oh no, she's really
Hold on,
bought in.
so
She's an Israeli. She doesn't even
Katee lived in Israel like literally a
recognize
few
her
years
Jewish
ago, and
identity.
Katee lived in Israel a few years ago, and she had these same thoughts, right?
Talk about my history with someone who's confused about my Western LARPing. I get my points with my Western LARPing without invoking my Israeli card, okay?
Okay,
I'm
fair enough.
good.
I
won't put words in your mouth.
I want
Sure,
your
no
answer.
problem. I will answer your question.
Yeah.
I'm with Katee that when responding to
force the
hold on,
two
one sec.
states into something.
Hold on,
they
listen.
don't want.
No, listen. Hold on. Now you understand. So I'm with Katee when on the terms of when facing a conflict with asymmetrical warfare, right? When one party is so much stronger than the other, that our responses to be asymmetrical. But that being said, right? Maybe even before, like as a condition of further of a peace treaty, right? We can impose that hey, like there should be one person, one vote. I believe that's what you asked.
Hmm. So
yes.
Prime, that's colonizer behavior, wanting equality in a state, okay? That's colonizer
Okay,
shit.
hold
right
the
there.
phone. I'm getting a little angry because none of us here want inequality. What we are arguing about
Correct.
is how best to achieve equality. In my argument, and I won't speak for the others, but as long as Hamas exists as a power, there will be no equality. There will be war upon war upon war. Advocating for Hamas to exist is advocating for the Palestinian people to be killed.
Israel, the ethno-state, existed before Hamas, baby.
Yes, and let me ask you this. If Hamas didn't exist, would October 7th have happened? And if October 7th
What
didn't
does that
happen,
have anything to do
Israel
with the point
be
you just
in
made?
Gaza right now?
What does that have anything to do with the point you just made? You talked about inequality.
Okay, Yes, when we're talking about inequality, we can recognize that there are differences in levels of inequality. We can say there is some inequality in certain situations, but much more inequality in others. And so to reduce the inequality to as little as possible, I wanted the conditions, the realistic conditions on the ground that will reduce the inequality to
I
as
think
little
it's
as
actually
possible.
realistic to be against ethno-states. I know it hurts you as a Zionist.
Hold
Sorry.
on, I am not a.
It's
this
colonizer
idea
behavior.
That because I don't want to kill all the Jews in Israel, that I'm a Zionist is crazy.
You're right, Wick. It's
This is
me,
why
the
the term
Israeli
Zionist-
Jewish lady that all of their family is in Israel that wants
you
to
are
kill all the
advocating
Jews in
would
Israel. You got
naturally
me. You
result
got me.
in
It's
that.
me. You got me.
I may not
Wick,
want
yeah.
to die when I jump out of the plane without a parachute.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
gonna
It's
happen if
natural
I
that the
do.
Palestinians will slaughter them all, right? Yeah, and we're the racists. Nice try.
So again,
Right.
Nice try, Wick.
Lonerbox never even made this claim. This is again why you're trying to claim that it's somehow racist, the position that we're taking, because we believe that Palestinians do not want to live in a state with Jews. We are not saying that they are bloodthirsty, that they are born hating Jews, that it is some unchanging, immutable fact of Arabs or Palestinians. No, we're saying they don't want to live in a state with Jews. And if they have control over some single state, it is very likely that Jews will not be allowed to live there. I'm not even suggesting that it would necessarily lead to genocide or pushing the Jews into the sea or anything like that. But there is an Arab nationalist affinity among the Palestinian population. This is
Oh, yeah,
Do we
do you
agree
think this
that
was
that
always the case?
affinity, Prime? Do we
Sorry.
agree that if such affinity exists in the majority of Palestinians, which I don't necessarily agree, but let's say for the sake of argument that the majority of Palestinians, including all of their leadership, want a Palestinian state with a Palestinian majority, do we agree it's exactly the same as with Israel?
Yeah,
Probably be more.
and I'm totally in
yes,
support
yes. No,
of a
I
Palestinian
disagree.
state
Yeah.
with a Palestinian majority.
I can see that it would be different.
No,
There's
I
no
know.
fucking. I can see
And I'm
that
the
it would be.
colonizer for thinking ethno-states are bad. I get
Yeah,
it.
I can see.
Wait,
I can
sorry.
see that in the.
Were you
I-
talking? Maybe I didn't understand the
okay.
question. Because are you saying in a one state situation? Like, what are you?
No, we're
Lonerbox, maybe flesh out how you disagree.
We're talking
'cause
about a
maybe I'm not
Palestinian
understanding.
state. So you're saying a Palestinian state, like, would it be the same as Israel? No, I can see that it would be different. There's no fucking way a Palestinian state would allow 20% of their population to be Jewish. Absolutely not.
Racist.
Okay.
It's pretty fucking
Why
racist.
should
I
they?
agree.
Fuck
Thank
that.
you.
Why should they? They should let the settlers stay? Fuck them. Get them out.
I don't think the settlers would stay. I think the settlers would immediately leave.
The IDF.
Wait, why would they leave?
To get them
Prime,
out, they will be
why
on the
would
first
they
flight
leave?
away. Don't worry.
No,
Hold on, no,
I'll tell you.
Prime.
I'll
Why
tell
would they
you.
leave? What would?
I will
Katie,
tell
know
you.
this is-
Wait, I'll
Katie,
tell you.
Wait.
Let me
Shut
tell
the
you.
fuck- You're about to
Hold
tell
on,
us
you
something
asked me a
wrong.
question,
You're about to say
Lonerbox.
something
You
wrong.
shut the
Okay.
fuck up. You asked me a question. Shut up. Thank you. Anyway, Wick, lover. Okay, the reason why they would leave, is because they don't want to live in a state that's certainly not even with the appearance of being co-equal with Palestinians, right? They want to live in that Jewish ethno state. It's important to them that they have dominion over this land. And if that state, right, even in the kindest way, push back against them, it demolishes their project. So of course they want to leave.
Here's the problem: is Israel is a refugee state. These people came there because they
No,
are
Wick,
refugees.
stop. He can't get away with that.
Okay.
You realize the settlers in Gaza had to get dragged, kicking and screaming by the IDF to get them out of Gaza.
Yeah.
And that was only 8,000 of them. So,
But,
no, they
but
would not all
in the
just want to
hypothetical,
leave,
hold on,
but-
Lonerbox. In the
Question-
hypothetical,
that's not the question asked.
hold on, stop it. Lonerbox, in the hypothetical where Palestine becomes a state, gets arms, gets an army, gets a military, and they take over all of Israel, what is known as Israel right now, and it could become all of Palestine, the people would leave because they know what would happen next.
And you're
That's
directing this to Loner Boss so he can jerk you off while you
No,
say it? Like,
I'm
what?
just
How about you
correcting
direct
him
it to someone who
in
disagrees
the
with you?
hypothetical here, right? And the reason I'm saying that they know what would happen next because we all understand what would happen
The racist
if,
ones. Yeah.
if
The
Hamas.
racist ones.
Hold on, no. If Hamas was in control of Palestine, do you not think that would happen?
Well, hold on. Oh, now it's Hamas. Okay, so now
Because
now
Hamas is
it's
a
Palestinian.
More of a rabbit.
Yeah, I know. Hold on. We have on the West Bank. Is Hamas in charge? Wait, correct me if I'm wrong.
Hamas
I'm
is the
sorry.
most popular there, and if Israel
Hamas-
wasn't
no,
there, they
but
would
is
be.
Hamas in charge in the West Bank?
If the IDF
Or-
wasn't there, they would be.
Can we have elections within this territory that had in terms of Gaza, who has elections in over a decade? Can we do that?
Why?
any of these things a possibility?
happens-
Why
what
would they?
happens when the Gazans elect Hamas?
I meant to respond to that. I meant to respond to that at the end of our debate before.
Please go ahead.
All of us here would be in support of elections in Gaza. We should
Great.
have elections in the West Bank too. Why
Agreed.
have there not been? Hamas does not allow for it. Frankly, neither does Abbas allow for it in the West Bank. But this is
Good thing we're not asking their
it doesn't need-
permission.
This idea that it doesn't
We're not
need to
asking
be
for their
Hamas
permission.
because we can allow them to elect someone else. You
Not
would have
asking
to
for their
ask their
permission.
permission if you allow the fucking Qassam brigades to be fully armed. You would have to ask their permission. How do you think this all happened?
I have
in
a
the first
question.
place?
So last time there was an election before Hamas canceled them, the Bush administration, together with Condoleezza Rice, said that they didn't acknowledge Hamas's rightful victory in the elections. So let's say Hamas weren't. Let's say that elections are allowed and Hamas wins. You still wouldn't accept them winning, right?
No, of course not. Hamas.
Shut up, Wick. I'm not talking to you. So if you wouldn't accept them winning, what is the point of asking for an election if you're not actually willing to respect the results of an election?
I'll let you answer.
Who are
Go
you
ahead.
talking to?
Yeah,
Because
who are you?
Prime
Who?
is
I
the
thought
one
you were
again who
asking me,
brought
but
up the
no one knows
election.
who you're asking.
And he's
because
saying that
everyone
they
thought
need
you
to
were
have
asking
an
me.
election because they wouldn't necessarily choose Hamas.
I'm sorry, I was talking to you because you said that you all support an election in Gaza.
Yeah, no, Hamas obviously cannot be the ruling faction in
Okay,
Gaza,
so you
obviously.
support an election as long as the people that you don't want don't get elected.
Hold on.
Yeah, I
No,
don't think
Katie,
there's gonna
hold
be
on.
an
Stop,
election
stop,
in
stop,
Gaza
please.
anytime
Katie,
soon.
Katie,
Fuck
Katie,
that.
Katie, Katie. If Palestine became a thing, right, and all one, like they had a free and fair election across the state of Palestine from the river to the sea, and they elected Likud, would you be okay with that?
Wick, you're the guy who
Hold
thinks
on,
that
I'm
if
asking you a question,
Palestine
answer.
became a thing, Palestinians would genocide Israelis,
I'm
okay?
asking you a
I don't think
question.
you're equipped
If-
for this conversation. I'm going to
I
be
have
very honest.
demonstrated more knowledge and more understanding of the people than you have in this entire conversation. Absolutely. Your brain is fried.
Are you
from
the guy
propaganda.
who kicked Viv for blood libel
Yes,
and then
because
did
she
a
was
Nazi salute
lying
on their stream?
about- she
You're
was
that guy,
lying
right?
about
So
the
I don't
Israeli army
think you
killing
have
American
the adequate
journalists.
education for this
Was-
conversation, okay,
again,
Nazi
you
salute
don't
boy?
understand what you're
Let's
talking
relax.
about, and you have demonstrated that again and again and again. Answer my question. If Palestine became a state from the river to the sea, one person, one vote, and they decided to
Wait.
elect Likud,
I
would
do
you
not
accept that
respect your
result?
opinion on this topic. You are not
answer my
worthy of my
question.
time.
Well, that's a non-answer. Don't cop out. Come on.
No, no.
That's so fucking lame and weak. Just contend
That's
with
fine.
him.
I'm weak. Wick, if you want, kick me. I don't
I'm not
care.
kicking
You are
you, I'm
not
asking
worthy
you a
of my
question.
time on this topic.
Oh my god.
So,
What is this,
Wick,
suicide by
Queen.
cop?
Wick.
Like, if you wanna duck out of it,
I-
just duck out. Don't tell me
Wait,
to
I
kick
would
you.
have. I would accept. No, I can do it.
I'm here for
I would-
you.
Okay. I would accept if Likud end up being the winner in a free and fair election. Like, just like the United States, right? I think Trump is a fucking degenerate. But I accept that his presidency, as far as I know, there wasn't any shenanigans in terms of our election process. And so he's the rightful, his regime is the rightful ruler of this land. So whatever.
Why would you ever accept that? Because you know what would happen next if Likud was in charge. You know what would happen.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, hold on. Again, like, actually contend. So you guys have been saying I've been contending with what you guys
Likud
have been
and
saying.
Hamas are not
But-
comparable, and like I just love when we pretend that.
Yeah,
they're still
sure.
just
I mean,
absolutely not.
Whatever. I
Speaking their
mean,
language.
That's true. Likud is doing a genocide and
speaking their
Hamas.
language,
Yeah,
okay.
they're actually doing the genocide. They're actually doing
Not
the ethnic
remotely
cleansing campaign. So, sure, whatever, right? Like, and I've read you the genocidal statements from the actual party, right? But you can pretend that they don't feel this way, right? Then I guess it's just all an accident. But whatever, right? Moving past that. So,
It's
like,
not even just
so
feeling
hon,
that way. We can
hold
just-
on. But if Wick is saying that, like, sorry, what was your last question, Wick? I do apologize. Wick, yeah, what was your last
me.
question? I'm sorry.
I'm just making sure I'm being addressed because apparently I'm not worthy of hosting my show. So, you know. Okay.
Sorry, Wick, please go ahead.
So, again, you believe right now that Likud's in charge and is doing a genocide, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So why would you accept if they change the name to Palestine?
Oh, yeah.
Why would you accept that? Why would you? You wouldn't.
Well,
Sure.
hold on.
If you actually believe that they are going to do a genocide, and they're doing a genocide currently, then you should not accept Likud being the free and fair elected people. You should be opposed to
Right.
that, even if they were elected.
We didn't just
by the
accept
people.
the Nazis.
hold on.
The Nazis
hold on.
didn't get to just
Those are-
maintain power
Those are
after
two
World
different
War
things.
II.
Those are two different things, right? So I can accept the results of the election, but that doesn't mean I accept
This
the
really
action.
is.
Hold on, wait a second. Let me answer. Hold on. Let me answer the question, Tali. I'm going to answer the question. 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 I'm going to answer the question.
Tali, let him answer. Let him answer. Come on, Tali, we'll get to you in a second.
I'm going to answer the question, Tali.
We'll get to you in a second, Tali. I promise.
I'm going to answer the question, Tali.
Go ahead,
So knock it off. Thank you. Fuck. All right. Anyway, so accepting the results of election are different from accepting the actions of a state, right? So I can say that, like, one, I accept that Trump is our president. That doesn't mean that I don't fight, I don't advocate, I don't do everything I can to put pressure on the administration to not do the awful things that it's doing, right? Same thing with the coup. So if within this hypothetical, I mean, this is a nonsense hypothetical, but let's say if within this one state solution, that Likud becomes in power and then restarts the genocide, obviously I would say, hey, we have to recontinue our pressure on
I would say
state.
overthrow them. I would say grab guns, go into the parliament.
No, I wouldn't do that because I'm not a neocon. No, I wouldn't do that because that doesn't work. No, actually, I wouldn't want to destabilize the area even more. We've already done that multiple times. It's crazy.
Prime, you are a neocon in Israel, though. You want to use international pressure and sanctions and like all these kinds of interventions to get the Israelis to move like in the direction you want to. Why are you such a neocon in Israel?
Putting pressure and pressure. That's nonsense. Yeah, the neoconservatives are the only ideology.
Really, who's the most adamant to sanction Iran? Who's the most adamant to sanction Iran?
The world police officer.
Sanctions cut across the political spectrum, right? I don't know why you're claiming this as only a neocon push, right? Was it neocons who wanted to sanction South Africa in the first place? No, it wasn't neocons who did that. What are you talking about? It's nonsense.
Okay, I want to make my point really quickly that I said that maybe people couldn't hear me because I was just talking over Prime. I'm so sorry about that. This just proves that you do not believe that there is a genocide happening in Gaza. If your response is, but the genocidal government that is conducting this genocide should be allowed to maintain power as long as that's the will of the people in their country, and the population being genocided absolutely should not be ethnically cleansed from the region where there is war. They should not be rescued from the region that is war torn. That is how I know you don't believe there is a genocide. We would be reacting the way that we react to actual genocides, abolishing Nazi Germany, ensuring that the Nazi Party is not an eligible faction in the future politics of that region, and going
I completely agree with Tali.
liberate and rescue the people who are being genocided. It just shows that you don't actually believe there's a genocide happening.
I agree with
If you
Tali.
do believe there's a genocide happening, then you are completely fucking heartless. That you're willing to look past the genocide because, well, it's a democracy and those people and the people in Israel believe that that's a good government. And I wouldn't, we shouldn't get involved in removing the Palestinians from the genocide because we wouldn't want them to lose, this strip of land.
So Prime,
ignore the last part of my statement, but go ahead. Sorry, Katie.
I actually completely agree with Tali. I do think you think it's a genocide, but this is why you shouldn't answer a really dumb hypothetical that makes no sense in any capacity. So I do agree with what Tali said also about the parallel to Nazi Germany, except that in Wick's pathetic hypothetical, that's not a correct analogy to what Tali is talking about. That would be if after the genocide in Nazi Germany, Jews were allowed to integrate back into Germany, and then they elected Hitler again. And in that case, I agree, you shouldn't accept Hitler getting reelected after the genocide in Germany, but that's why the hypothetical is R-worded. So I think you were stupid for answering such a dumb question in the first place. Thank you, Tali, for making that point. It was a good point.
I think it's fair that Wick made an awful hypothetical. I'll beat up on Wick more. That's not a problem. But
Prime
so
is
even within the
that Wick
I am
made an awful
probably. I just want to
What
take
a
this
strong
time to take this
concession.
moment to just recognize I am the nicest, most patient person that you guys have ever met. I am just saying. I'm just saying that right now.
And also the most humble. Yeah,
It's
so,
true. That's also true. But continue, please.
I just look, and I said before that this was a fantastical situation, right? But I can work with within the confines of a hypothetical. Look, the peace process, and this part, and I feel like you guys aren't listening to this, right? And I don't think you're trying to be obtuse, right? Maybe you're just not hearing me. I'm going to try to say it again, right? So hold on, Tali, you want to interrupt me, but come on. So
I do.
it's
Busting
okay.
at the seams.
I understand. So like in any solution, right? A solution that you would make, solution I would make, solution a third party would make, right? This solution doesn't come in full force the next day, right? Even if we together here come up with a plan, the next day it doesn't, and we have the power to do it, the next day it doesn't happen in Israel, right? It can be a plan that's politically unpopular, right? But it doesn't immediately happen. We have to give buy-in to the population, right? That peace is a possibility. And I think this maybe sounds like hippie shit to you guys, right? And maybe it sounds like that, but this is the way, right? That we have to create a situation where people are open to peace, right? So I don't even truly believe that Palestinians are
Normalization is the way.
normalization. You mean with Israel in terms of
Yes.
forming?
Yes, goodwill. Yes, goodwill.
I mean, I would
amongst
I'd
the
be
people.
fine. I would be fine.
Recognition.
I would be fine with
Recognition
normalization.
of
Yeah,
the other,
but that comes,
their
but
right
that doesn't come
to
immediately.
sovereignty in that.
Hold on. But that doesn't come immediately. It doesn't come immediately. It can't come immediately. It can't come tomorrow. If that's what you're looking for, then we can't form a peace deal. I'm saying, hey, let's form baby steps, right? Let's start by rebuilding Gaza. That would be a great way of doing this. Let's start by stopping the settlements in the West Bank. These are all concrete steps that we can take before we ever think about like a two-state solution or one-state solution. We can do these things, and on that path, when you show people through civil engagement, right, that you can like get things done, other than other than the other response would be a military engagement, right? Through civil engagement, that you can actually make solid accomplishments, then people will be more open to peace. Does that ignoring Israel Palestine for a moment, right? Do you think that formulation that I've given you, well, does that make sense in other conflicts that I've just laid out for you, Tali?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And like, who doesn't agree with that?
Okay, so you do agree. So that's
In principle,
so people.
in principle, if
Okay.
I'm understanding you correctly, this seems very simple. Yes, like you need goodwill and baby steps and to be able to build trust. Yeah, totally.
Okay, great, right? So that's where we would
where's the
have to start one way or the other. Okay, great. So
Sure.
So we'd have to start. But what you're saying
There's
is
still going to be preconditions that both sides are going to require, right? 'Cause even the
agreed.
first step has to start somewhere, right? And
Agreed.
a
Agreed.
precondition
Now,
is,
where
of
those
course,
exact
gonna be that
preconditions
Hamas
are
does
going to
not
have to
have
be, I
any
don't
power
know,
in
right?
Gaza.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what we know, at least we know that is going to be a precondition.
Sorry,
Israel.
which one?
That Hamas will not have any control in Gaza.
Um,
Or the West Bank for that matter, but
and again, I think that. Well, so we'll come to the same situation, right? Where you think a armed group. So there's other armed groups like within Gaza, right? There are other armed groups other than Hamas, right? But just because they have their arms, right? Let's say Hamas gets rid of all their arms, right? Just because those other people have their arms, haven't been part of the peace process. They don't give it up, right? That doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden in charge of Gaza, right? So in your situation where Hamas lays down his arms, those gangs who don't do that, they aren't in control of Gaza, correct? Right? Just because you have the weapons doesn't mean you control that territory. So if you have,
sure, they're not going to. Israel's not going to
whoa.
concede to Hamas having the capacity, even if you're saying they don't have like governing control. Sure, Israel still won't concede to that point. That will still be a precondition, a step one.
and I'm saying that, but even then, they agreed previously to a ceasefire where that wasn't the precondition. The ceasefire that
Yeah, again,
you
like
had,
they
correct?
agreed to ceasefires that are literally they are seen in Israel
So
as a
Israel was lying.
temporary pause, a temper. Well, no, I mean they agree a temporary pause to get back hostages.
Oh yeah.
Prime,
So
listen to
That's
what
what the
she's saying.
ceasefire is.
Israel agreed to the ceasefire that you're using because they didn't give a fuck about actually getting a ceasefire. They used the ceasefire to get hostages, and then they and then they broke it. They
And
don't
Hamas
I
care.
agree.
uses the ceasefire for what? Hamas broke the ceasefire.
I agree.
Again, like you guys see that like there's some power imbalance, so it doesn't matter. Like Hamas has to break it 5 times for every 1 time that Israel breaks or something, kind of like the prisoner exchange, right? You gotta get 1,000 prisoners out for 1 hostage. What do you think Hamas's intentions were for the ceasefire? Peace?
Goodwill.
Everlasting peace? No.
Two-state solution.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Doesn't Hamas say this as well? Doesn't every
it's
Hamas
ridiculous.
solution
And
always offer like a?
both sides are leveraging.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
for
No, as I
short-term
understand,
goals,
Hamas
for
is
short-term
always
goals.
just saying
They're
like, oh, we just want to live in
leveraging
peace.
temporary.
All we want is just peace on earth.
Again,
That's
no,
all
I
Hamas
don't. But
says.
you guys keep ignoring what I'm saying. So
We're not ignoring it. We're not ignoring it.
No,
I
you
promise
are.
we're
No,
not
you are.
ignoring it.
Because then
What we're saying,
you
hold
respond,
on, if I may finish,
we'll come back completely ignore it. Go ahead.
if I may finish, we're not ignoring your point. We're just saying that this like idea that you have, while a good idea in theory, is unworkable. And so we're looking for an actual workable on
But
the
you
ground
just keep
solution
saying that's
that can
unworkable.
actually-
You keep stating it with as much evidence as I have. Right? That
I have
Israel
80 years
has
of
broken.
evidence that-
Israel, yes, and we can see Israel breaking their agreements. Right? We can see them doing that. So we can see that Israel is not a completely trustworthy side. But in an armed conflict, both sides are untrustworthy. Right? We have to build trust, and you start with small steps. That's what it always is. So you guys can keep saying that Hamas or the Palestinians or whoever is a convenient scapegoat at that particular moment,
Not
right?
Palestinians,
Will automatically break a ceasefire that they agreed to, right? I can say the same thing about Israel because they actually have done that, right? Or you could say that we should try to give peace a chance. That the only way to do that is to actually go through the process.
Would it help you if I admitted that with Netanyahu in charge, it's also impossible to have peace? Would that help the conversation? If we could both recognize that the current government of Israel, with Netanyahu leading it, you will not get peace. There will be no peace. With Hamas, currently the government in Gaza, there will also be no peace. So both of those.
I don't agree with that. No, I don't agree with that. I think that this government can be pressured through international means to actually bend their will. Absolutely.
There's no incentive for Netanyahu to do that. All Netanyahu
if there's no international pressure, then there absolutely is no incentive. Agreed. Yeah, we have to bring that incentive.
You do not. I think you are really misguided in your understanding of how Israel would respond, how the current government would respond to that type of international pressure that you're talking about.
And I think you're misguided
pressure on Israel's current government. International pressure on Israel's current government is never going to culminate in a concession that Hamas can maintain military or civilian control of Gaza, even for some temporary amount of time.
So she doesn't agree. So I mean, like you say that, right? So again, we're stuck at this point of the conversation because like it's impassable. You guys are positive, without a shadow of a doubt, that Hamas can't be reasoned with, that we can't they can't agree to some contract, right, and stick to it, right? I can say on the other side that I've watched the Israelis break their own agreements.
This is not about who can sign contracts and who can stick to it. Again, like we're just pretending that these are, and this is where like Katee, this is apparently Katie's sticking point with me. We're pretending that these are two equal sides, and they're not. They're not. In intent and in power and in responsibility and all of these things. All of these things are different, but they are not. They do not have the same intentions. Like even with regards to breaking the ceasefire, Israel breaks the ceasefire, let's say, to gain some type of strategic advantage to further their war goals. Hamas breaks the ceasefire to indiscriminately target Israeli civilians, even when they know that targeting will fail because of the Israelis' defense system.
You see, Hamas have no war goals. All Hamas do is try to kill as many as they can. Israel has war goals, and those are not to kill everyone that they can.
Because they're civilized.
Yes, that is objectively true. Yes, objectively true.
What are Hamas's?
Well, there you go.
Katee, what are Hamas's war goals? What are the war goals?
Loner Box, I will talk to Prime now. Hi. So, Prime, what you need to understand is this.
It's because it was a good question, Loner. That's
Yeah,
why.
It
no,
is a
they'll
good
never answer
question.
that.
We
They're
can
fucking
talk more about
cowards.
that after I'm done with Prime. Prime, what you need to understand is this. Israel is the powerful side. Therefore, even if you go the stupid
Israel
lib
is the
route,
oppressor.
even if you do the lib shit that you're trying to do and say both sides are bad, both sides are untrustworthy, both sides need this and this and that, it's not going to work, because at the end of the day, Israel has all the powers and power. And so Zionists would tell you, you see, you have to accept our terms because we're the one dictating the terms. And you're trying to reason with this like it's logical. It's not logical. It's an exertion of power that Israel simply has. It's pointless to argue. And all you do is then end up calling a genocide an armed conflict. It's embarrassing.
Arabs and Palestinians don't call it a genocide when they're talking to each other in Arabic, right? Like they have plenty of words that they could
Oh, you
use, and
speak
the
Arabic?
word they use is
Wow.
war. The word they use is war.
You speak Arabic?
No, I don't. I have,
Oh,
believe it
okay.
or not, I have lots of friends who do.
Can we
Yeah.
can we acknowledge that both sides? Hold on, both sides want preconditions before any ceasefire is agreed to, right? Both sides
Wait,
have.
I need to talk to Loner Box.
Well, what are
Oh,
Hamas's
she's
war
ready to
goals?
answer the question.
What are Hamas's war goals?
Yeah.
Hamas probably just wants to agitate as much as possible,
For what?
if I have to say.
It's for what? Why?
Why? Because they think agitation would be the most viable way to change conditions to eventually lead to Palestinian liberation.
Okay. I feel like I just heard
Thank
a
you
lot of
for the
words that
question.
don't really say anything. Okay.
Okay, cool. What
I
did
just
you
want
want
to
to
see
say,
if
Wade?
I just want to see if we agree on this. What, like, in terms of ceasefire and ending the war, there's really only two main red lines that I think matter. One, Israel's never stopping until Hamas are disarmed and fucked off. Hamas is never ending the war unless they get a chance to rebuild and try again. Do we disagree with either of these goals?
Yeah, I
Do we,
disagree.
what
I
do you
mean,
think? Yeah.
if you're saying what do people want, what does Israel want, I agree with these things. I just think with international pressure, Israel would absolutely stop.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking, like,
Okay.
do we agree that this is Israel's goal and we agree that this is what Hamas wants for the war to end? Israel wants an end that means Hamas are gone. They can't govern Gaza. They can't build a military in Gaza. Hamas only wants a ceasefire that means that they get to stay in power in Gaza.
I think that's a partial staple for Israel. I think Israel would want Hamas completely gone, and they would want the extremist form of removal of as many Palestinians from Gaza as possible.
Okay, what do you think, Prime? Do you think Israel's primary goal is to they'll end the war if Hamas is gone militarily and politically, and they don't have a chance to rebuild?
I think that is a convenient excuse. That the goal is an ethnic. No, you're not going to like what I'm about to say. Don't worry, Loner Box. That as they've stated multiple times, the goal is the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. That's the preferable goal. That the goal to clear out Hamas, right?
Not
They
the
understand
preferable goal.
So the goal to clear out Hamas, right, is a convenient thing that they can keep dangling. Hey, like, we just haven't gotten rid of Hamas. We've been bombing and bombing and bombing. We just haven't managed to. If we give us another year of dropping bombs on civilians, on hospitals, on schools, right, of destroying civilian infrastructure. Give us yet another year of doing that, right, and just maybe we'll do it. Check in with us then. So, and we see that Hamas in itself, right, has been more robust, at least in its ability to maintain itself, if not its ability to fight back, right? That, like, as long as there's a population that keeps getting radicalized by the bombs that are destroying their family, ripping them apart, burying them under rubble, that they'll keep getting more adherents. That you're saying that
Well,
we
this
need
isn't true,
Hamas.
though. Hamas,
Hold on,
the anti-Hamas protesters are more popular than ever.
One second. So, even if a Hamas disappears, right, you're going to open this up to another radical group. Because unless you actually deal with the political ramifications, the political divide here, then you'll just find another group, right, calling itself by a different name that will also.
Wait, I agree with you. I agree with you. Which is why, in order for an effort to go towards actual peace, right, we get rid of Hamas and we ensure that the material conditions change. We ensure that a two-state solution is enacted so that there is no need for other resistance groups, as you would call it, to pop up. So yes, the two things are required, right? Like you're saying, we can't just get rid of the resistance. We need to change the material conditions.
I agree.
So both of those things need to
So
happen, which means a
you shouldn't agree.
for that peace.
Wait, this just completely got me off my question. Fuck.
You shouldn't agree, Prime.
We just got completely
We did.
directed
We got-
away from my
we got
question now. I wasn't
Primecayes
asking
what we
about
got.
political
Anyway.
solutions or anything. I was just asking about conditions under which they'd be happy to end the war. I think Israel would accept ending the war if Hamas were gone militarily and politically. I don't know, Prime, I guess you don't agree, or?
I mean, I answered this specifically. Maybe I'm not sure
you don't agree. They just want, I know. They just want to pretend they're getting rid of Hamas so they can do an ethnic cleansing, right? Or genocide, interchangeably.
I mean, it's similar to what I said. The main goal is ethnically cleanse as much as possible, and the second one is remove Hamas, right? It's not complicated.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, look, again, I don't have to rely.
Wait, so why
this isn't my
haven't they-
intuition.
why haven't
These
they-
are the statements. Go ahead. Sorry.
If that is their number one goal is genocide and ethnic cleansing, then why haven't they targeted civilians much more forcefully? They obviously have the capacity to.
I don't know. They have Israel has dumped, according to an old estimate, 87,000 tons of munitions.
But you realize you're about to reinforce.
There you go.
Point,
that's
like,
evidence.
What the fuck?
Correct.
How have they dropped that many tons of bombs? Like, how many dropped this many Hiroshimas and Nagasaki's, but still got a death toll that's actually quite a lot lower than these previous bombs?
You disagree with the death toll is to me, right? I think we don't even know the full extent of the death toll,
Name your death toll. We could probably concede your death toll, and your point still proves our point.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it will.
Death toll could be 4. It absolutely would. Again, the amount of munitions that you're talking about that would have the capacity to annihilate the entire population 4 times over. Okay? So even if we say that the death toll is 200,000, confirmed 200,000, still Israel can obviously do so much more damage to the civilian population with the munitions already dropped.
I can respond. I can respond later on.
No, you need to understand. The Nazis didn't want to do genocide. It took them 5 years. They could have done it in 1 year. It wasn't real genocide.
They didn't mean it.
You understand how this works.
I mean, the Nazis literally killed like thousands of people a day. That's not even
like
the ones in the wars. These are like the people who the Nazis literally worked fucking overtime and diverted military supplies to do the fucking Holocaust. This was the people who were surrendered and defenseless, like they got no arms at all. But,
Tali, I can respond to you.
Who had no option, right?
Tali,
to negotiate out.
Downplay the Holocaust to make Israel look bad.
Tali, I understand. Tali, I understand. I'm gonna respond to your question.
Hold on, let him respond, then we get Tali. So Prime and then Tali.
Tali, right? It's weird when we're looking at this from one particular angle, right? Like on one axis, right? And I'm not trying to cast aspersions on your analytical capabilities. I'm just saying that just looking at like the rate of their deaths and saying, well, it could be more. Well, okay. What else is going on? Not just it could be more.
It should be more. It would be more if that was their intention.
Hold on. You're just, first of all, you're just stating that, right? Like it's simply. Well, hold on. But listen, let me respond, Tali.
No,
Tali,
I'm not stating it. I'm saying based on
Tali. You're wonderful. Thank you. Tali. So what else is going on is that Israel has other what's what I'm looking for? Priorities, political burdens. It has pressures upon it, right? It understands the world is watching. That's why they started letting in literally a trickle of aid back into Gaza, because they could see that the response to the massive famine they're causing in Gaza right now was causing a disproportionate, well, not a disproportionate, but a huge backlash against the regime. So in response to that, right, they let in some trucks, a tiny amount, not nearly enough, to show, oh, we're doing something, right? Because there is international pressure, because they have things to worry about, because they want to maintain economic ties with powerful blocs like the EU, right? The EU, which is looking into reviewing their relationship with Israel.
Actual question.
All these. Sorry.
Actual question.
So it's
how
a
much
slow motion
aid...
genocide is basically the fucking.
I was just,
How
I
much-
was
No,
just-
no, no.
Hold on, I have
It's
an
an
actual
ethnic
question.
cleansing
I have an
that
actual.
can-
Hold on, I don't actually know how much aid is going to. How much aid right now is going into Gaza?
I have to look up the recent.
Well,
truck
you keep
numbers.
saying
I
it's
don't
trickle.
remember.
I want to know. How much.
How much
It
should
was a
be?
trickle.
What about how much should be?
Several hundred per day.
Why do you think
is
several
the
hundred trucks
estimates.
per day?
Because that's what the estimates that experts have given me. I don't,
No, it's
know
not.
the exact.
No, wait.
Hold on.
Well, yeah,
I'm not
I know why
I'm
the
not
experts say that,
just.
but-
There's literally millions of people there that require multiple meals per day to get an adequate amount of
That has
calories
nothing to
into
do
their
with the question
system,
about how many
right?
trucks per
But a
day.
huge-
They need medical
acknowledge
supplies.
a huge part of the problem is distribution.
No, wait.
Yeah, because Israel has destroyed all the infrastructure.
Before we
It
get
is
to
a big problem.
before we get to distribution, I'm just telling you, this 100 trucks a day thing, this 100 trucks a day for food aid, this comes from people misunderstanding like old UN data from before the war, which lumped in aid trucks that only came in on working days. First of all, they excluded weekends, and then it also includes aid which is not humanitarian in terms of like direct needs. So it included like more than half of these aid trucks, when it was over a few hundred a day, was concrete, okay, and
Wait.
electrical supplies and building equipment.
It's
As far as
also
food
they
aid,
They need
as
less
far as
aid than before.
as far as
now
food,
they
as
need
far
less
as
aid. You're right.
as far
you got
as-
him.
that okay, as far as food aid goes, I think the average pre-war was like 70 trucks a day. This idea that they've ever needed several hundred trucks of aid a day is just completely like fabricated. It's just interesting.
Let's go with 70 trucks a day. Great, right? As
Also
it stands now,
Yeah, but that's a pretty
As
important piece of information.
Well, as it stands now, well, hold on. Okay, so
we should be counting.
I
by
don't have
resource,
any.
right?
I don't have any confirmation that your estimate is correct, right? But I'm also not trying to say that you're a liar. Maybe you read something that I haven't read, and that's okay, right? I'm not. Yeah, I don't. Solana Box. I'm not calling you a liar, to be very clear, right? It's just that I don't know. I'm not a logistical expert, right? The experts that I've seen on this subject have said several hundreds, but I don't know, right? But whatever that is, right? But we do understand from international groups observing the situation that there's a famine in Gaza right now.
When did they say again? Okay, the
right
IPC
now.
has literally said there's not a famine right now.
There are plenty of groups that said the UN has stated that.
But the IPC is okay. This is the problem. Okay, I can show you this back to back in real time if you want to.
Anti-Semitic. I don't know, but go ahead.
When did I ever say anything about anti-Semitic?
Sorry, hold on. That was a cheap shot. It was a cheap shot. I take it back.
Okay, I can literally just show you this like in real time. I can really just show you this in real time right now, where you have a month in last year where the IPC, which is the UN's body for determining food situations, literally said that they didn't have enough evidence to say there was a famine, and then they downgraded their predictions. But then in the same month, okay, the special rapporteurs who are not analyzing and not doing studies just declared a famine anyway. And these were both UN bodies. Like, just because something has the UN attached to it or Amnesty or anything like that does not mean these people are like standing on a mountain of credibility.
It says IPC.
I can show you this in real time
the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification. I'm in IPCinfo.org. Is this the same organization you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. So it says Gaza Strip, famine is imminent as 1.1 million people, half of Gaza, experience catastrophic food insecurity.
Yes, they've been saying this. They've been saying this
literally since October 8th.
The IPC,
the earliest.
The IPC acute food insecurity analysis conducted, in December 2023, warned of a risk that famine may occur by the end of May 2024 if an immediate cessation of hostilities and sustained access for the
and what happened?
Yeah, I'm about to show you the. I'm going to show you June 2024. Then this is from the IPC on June 2024.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to just hand it to you, or will I just read it?
You can do both.
Read it.
Okay. IPC report from June 2024. They say, let's go to key findings. Okay. So they say, additionally, the response in the nutrition, water, sanitation, hygiene, and health sectors was scaled up in this context. The available evidence does not indicate that famine is currently occurring. As far as I know, there's not been any IPC study that's ever declared famine is occurring. That was June 2024. Then in July, based on, with no study linked or anything, just like a PR statement, you have the experts, the special rapporteurs, including Francesca Albanese and a bunch of other UN rapporteurs, they just declared a famine anyway. These are both UN. One is a press release, the other one's the actual IPC. Just because the UN, our headline says the UN said something, is like, it's not very reliable in this war, unfortunately. But yeah, like they've been saying famine is imminent since like October 17th, I believe. Yet to see an actual IPC declaration that won't happen. What we have seen is them making predictions and then downgrading those predictions like the month later. They've been doing that constantly.
But the amount of aid has changed. So, like, the reason why I'm saying this is that, like, Israel cut off the aid, right? And if there's no aid coming in, there's no. Let me establish this first. Would you agree that after an extended period of time, if there's no aid coming in, right, that they will run out of food and that there will be a famine, that there's necessarily a need for outside aid to come in to sustain the population? Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree that if people go enough time without food, then they'll starve. Yes.
Well, hold on. I'm just making sure we have to establish this. So
Thank you for that concession, Lonerbox.
I appreciate it, right? Because sometimes we don't get that on obvious things. But in any
I've
case,
never seen anyone deny that humans can survive without food and water.
No. It's not about. So I didn't say food. I said aid, right? Because people could say that. Well, there's still some food.
It'd be okay if the aid coming in wasn't food.
Hold on, listen, Tali. I'm about to answer your question before you say it, right? So, people will say that. Well, this there's still some
300 trucks.
Hold on, and then literally while I'm trying to answer it, right, you keep interjecting new things. So people will say, let me try it again. Okay, people will say that there's still some food that these people can survive, right? It's not true. There's no food, right? There's food available, and even if aid trucks aren't coming in now, they've got enough somewhere, right? I've heard there's restaurants in Gaza, right? So maybe they still have some food, and they're just not telling, or maybe they're lying. Maybe the Gaza Health Ministry is lying about the situation down there, and things aren't really as bad as possible.
Yes, of course, the Gaza Health Ministry is lying. Of course, there is food and aid that is being
of course. Sure. So going back to the situation.
These things. Did you know that you can acknowledge these things? And call for more aid to enter Gaza? Did you know that you
separating things? I'm not going to ignore your question until I finish answering my. I will ignore you until I finish. Thank you. So the aid, right, is a separate question. So if you think that there's still food left inside, then you might say, well, then we don't need to deliver as much aid, right? The situation isn't as bad as they're saying. So if they cut back, they'll survive, right? Maybe they'll just get a little leaner. So I'm just trying to establish a link, not between food and survival, but between aid and survival. That's what I'm doing. So any which way.
Right? Okay, so sorry. So make the distinction, because I actually don't think you made it. You said a lot of things.
Because you haven't been listening.
Okay, hold on.
I'm not going to repeat myself.
I'm
not going to repeat myself. If you had stopped talking over me, maybe you would have understood it. So I'm not going to repeat it again. Rewind the VOD. You can do it yourself. No, I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. Okay, moving on. Again, Tali. Sure, nice try, Tali. Trust me, I cannot be baited. But
I'm not even I'm not even trying to be funny. So then
I know, but
hold on. Let Tali go. Let Tali go for a minute. Okay. Let's give the mic to Tali.
Well, it's a question. So you said. So you're trying to make the distinction between food and aid. So what is it? Could you please reiterate just in a few words, a few sentences?
Sure. Food can exist. Sure. I'm trying to do it. You ready? Are you not going to interrupt me? Okay, Tali? You've got a wonderful smile. Okay. Let me start there. All right. Okay. So, food is different. I'm sorry. I hope that didn't feel inappropriate.
Don't worry.
Food, right, can exist inside the Gaza Strip or outside the Gaza Strip, right? When I'm talking about aid, I mean food aid, right? So there's no distinction there. But like, if you're saying is there no food in the Gaza Strip, some people could argue yes, there is food there left, either from previous aid or what they've been hoarding, or they've been lying about how much food is left, right? I distinguish that from aid, okay, so food being inside the Gaza Strip, from aid coming outside, being used to support that population, right? Food aid being coming in. So if you think that there's a critical deprivation of internal food, then you'd understand that you need external food to come in. Correct? They're not just fishing out there and supporting the population. Correct?
Yes. So, but what point have you made?
I
Yeah. So
didn't even get to that point. I just had to establish that. I've been trying to establish that the entire time. So, like, yeah, there's a difference here. And then you fought
there was
me on
nothing
this
to
entire
establish.
time.
You're not. I don't.
Okay.
Maybe we
Okay,
should move on because
okay,
this is
great.
like almost
Great. So
boring.
you didn't.
Yeah,
you interrupt me constantly the entire time while I'm trying to give you multiple different answers, right? To a question that was asked like 20 minutes ago, and then you're like, "Well, why did that doesn't establish anything?" Yeah, that's it. It hasn't.
Why
with
was
your
it asked
concept of
20
feeling.
minutes
I
ago,
don't know what you
Brian?
think
So-
made me concede. Like I don't think it's.
I didn't ask you to concede
it's a very
anything.
coherent
I didn't.
point.
The question was to loaner box. I didn't ask you to concede anything, right? You just kept interjecting.
I think the issue is that like it's now, it seems like it's been like a bit more revealed that these like aid organizations and the UN and the Oxfam or whatever basically spent about 20 months saying famine was imminent, and then it turned out not to happen, and then that might cast some more doubt over other bold assertions that they've made about the situation, and maybe Prime
It might be that I'm having a tantrum.
maybe Prime's just
Okay, so
crashing out over that fucking
Yeah,
revelation.
it might be them having a tantrum, but that's a way of doing it. Yeah, okay. So I don't. So then I take back what I said before, right? That cheap shot. I give you that cheap shot back. All right. So back to it, right? So I'm just establishing that aid is necessary, and that if aid had stopped, right, then there'd be increase in famine, or sorry, increase in people. Sorry, let me not use famine. Increase in people dying of starvation. When Israel cut off all aid, do you think there was an increase in people dying of starvation?
I think that's an even stronger claim, but yes, again, yes, we can see that people die without food. I don't really understand what is this point working towards? Like what's the greater point that you're trying to make here?
Sure. The classification of so famine doesn't happen all at once in a territory, right? It's not simply a thing.
Okay.
There is a famine, right? These are talking about indicators of, hey, we have famine. People at first become food insecure, right? And then they don't have enough calories to maintain a healthy diet, and then whatever. Like there's like literally a scale here, right? And there is a map. I saw it before. Maybe we can pull that up, right? That talks about, or it was actually might have been a graph. A pie chart, but talking about the percentage of the population that is estimated to be within these different sections, right? So just because a quote unquote,
right, and Lonerbox
Sure.
highlights that those predictions so far have been just off, like ever
no.
since the beginning of
So
the
what
war.
Lonerbox said, now he might disagree, but what Lonerbox said is that a famine hasn't been declared in bold, right? What I'm saying is that on the way to famine, there is lots of different steps, and different parts of the population
right,
are
but we
suffering that at
haven't
different
reached
points
those
in time.
benchmarks either. And
Other
to be fair, we
organizations
have
say
reached-
different
I'm
things,
glad
so-
that more people are
Hold
not
on,
dying from starvation.
hold on. We have reached some benchmarks.
So there are stages of like, first there's like, I guess there's food insecurity, then you can have like acute malnutrition, which, and then you can have severe acute malnutrition, which is like malnutrition that actually has permanent damages to your body. I believe the latest warning from the IPC was that 14,000 under fives would be at risk of this before May 2026 or something. That's why, remember that UN dude who said that 14,000 babies will die within 24 hours? That was what he was misquoting when he said that. Then the definition of a famine is, I believe, between 2 and 4 deaths in every 10,000 every day. The definition of a famine multiplied by Gaza's population, or even a part of Gaza, would be like thousands of people dying every couple of weeks. Like it's far beyond anything we've seen so far. But yeah, famine does have a very precise definition in the IPC.
So, sure. So it seemed like, and Lonerbox, you can correct me. Maybe you didn't mean this, right? So let me ask you. So was your contention with me bringing up the possibility of famine simply that a famine hasn't been declared, right? Like, okay, we are quote unquote in capital words legal famine now, or was your contention with me that hey, it's we haven't gone down that scale, right? We're not even close to approaching where a situation where we should even be discussing the word famine.
Yeah, because I believe you said famine, and I think as far as we have it now, it seems very clear that Israel doesn't really have that much intention of like causing up famine across
Just
the
a
entire strip.
housekeeping thing
Okay,
for a minute. Hold
okay,
on,
well
just
then
a real
haven't
quick
behaved in that way,
housekeeping thing
really.
for a minute. I gotta get something for. Give me 5 minutes. Tali, you're in charge till I'm back. Okay. Cool.
Okay, well then I'll give you that concession then. Then if that's the case, and I use the term that we are in famine, right? Like, legal famine, then I apologize. Because as far as I know, we aren't in quote unquote legal famine. Then I pull that back. I think we're getting closer to that as aid has been restricted. Can we agree there?
I thought aid's been returned into Gaza now. Isn't it going back up?
It's been slowed down to a trickle. And then at the aid sites, right? We've seen like the Gaza Humanitarian Fund. We've seen Israel fire upon aid seekers. So yeah, like aid distribution is a complete mess at this point in time. Which Tali said previously, and I agree. It is a mess. Israel has bombed all the infrastructure. Israel has denied.
Yeah, that's not why it's a mess.
Well, I know. Of course, you don't agree with that part. I was putting those words in your mouth. But Israel has
Why
destroyed.
would Israel set up this aid distribution center to then corral, trap innocent civilians, and murder them?
Because Israel has a callous disregard for the lives of Palestinians. They have a callous disregard for the lives of Palestinians. Yeah. As they've done.
Even callous disregard, that's totally different, right? Callous disregard would be completely separate from corralling innocent people into line so that you could shoot them dead.
Like you're asking me, like why
that would be actual acts of genocide.
Hey, Prime,
right?
what are the what was going through the minds of those soldiers, right, when they fired upon those civilians? I don't know exactly what's going through their minds, right? Maybe they were acting against orders. That's a possibility, right? Even in the context of ethnic cleansing, in the context of genocide, individual soldiers or battalions can act outside the confines of of orders given from the top, right? But so I don't know what those specific orders might have been, but all I'm saying is that Israel set up this aid distribution network, and we've had multiple days of mass casualty events, right? At or near.
We don't have all the information for these.
No, we don't. Okay, well, CNN. No, I'm not. CNN just did.
It wouldn't be the first time that CNN or
I know
everyone's
anti-Semitic. Everyone's anti-Semitic.
Not anti-Semitic.
And okay, and then
even the Jew is not making this argument. So please don't try to make
they
it
all lie.
No, you don't have to be anti-Semitic. You don't have to be anti-Semitic to buy into Hamas propaganda. Actually,
great. So
lots of
Israel has gathered
do it all the time.
Gathered video footage. They've geolocated that footage.
Wait, Prime, I'm also Jewish. Can you tell me how you were anti-Semitic? I'd like to reprimand you as well.
I didn't call him anti-Semitic.
I wasn't. Can you repeat that, please? I'd like to supervise your potential anti-Semitism.
He didn't do an anti-Semitism.
The point.
One of you did a blood libel.
Keeping an eye on
what's going on.
Is assuming the Jew's just going to call everything anti-Semitic just because she disagrees with it. That's probably something anti-Semitism he's actually doing.
Correct.
Sure.
Correct.
Sure.
Just crashing out over anti-Semitism.
Yeah, you can keep saying that. Trust me, that's not going to do it for me, right? That's not going to get under my skin.
You're making it sound like
don't worry, I'm too experienced to do that. So here is I put it in our group chat. Here's the investigation by CNN, right? Gathering a ton of data, talking to witnesses.
Right, they geolocated from the videos where what you in the videos you can't actually see what's happening. You can hear shots being fired. You can't tell from the videos where the shots are being fired. They can geolocate the actual videos. That doesn't give you all of the information about who was shooting and where the shooters were. So again, they have some information. We've seen this go wrong before, right? We've seen this go wrong before. It doesn't make them anti-Semitic. They might be getting this wrong, and it's possible. It's possible that they're correct. We don't have enough information yet. And I
Okay.
don't believe that
How
the
many-
IDF is always lying and genocidal. So I am inclined to listen to, not trust blindly, but listen to what the IDF has to say about their
Sure. It just
investigations.
doesn't seem like we ever get that evidence. It seems like, and I'm not
I don't know
gonna. I'm
about
not gonna
that.
put this
We
on you.
do. Sometimes
not
it takes
gonna-
too long.
I'm not going to put this on you.
Sometimes
but
they
like, it seems
we
like
get the
many
evidence
times.
all the time.
Quite often, in previous
well,
conflicts, we get all the evidence after the war's over, and then Hamas needs to like credit their fighters, and then they start coming out being like, "Oh yeah, actually, that war where we said we lost like 40 people, we actually lost 700." Whoops, that does happen. Actually, happens every fucking time.
Yeah, sure. The IDF has been caught lying endlessly. Sure, we agree. Both sides have reasons to inflate numbers for their benefit. I recognize that. You don't seem to when it comes to the IDF. So
well,
in
no,
any
I can
case,
acknowledge
right?
when the IDF's lied.
It's
We can
almost
go over
like
this particular instance, and you can tell me when they've lied and when they haven't. Maybe we agree on
Prime.
that. By the way, earlier
Yeah.
you did say the UN declared a famine. I don't know why you keep on like being flippant about the legal famine thing. You said the UN declared a famine.
Hold on. Hold on. I said that if
Did say
I took that back. I said if I use those words, then I retract them, right? Because as far as I know, a legal quote unquote famine has been declared. Only that we are increasingly approaching a famine. So I did say that like 5 minutes ago.
So my question to you would be, so you said you're maybe agnostic on whether or not like the Israelis, from the top down, decided to lure these people into a queue for aid so that they could just fire on them. Like
I don't have
fucking
evidence
fish in a
saying
barrel.
that they necessarily did that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're
they
agnostic
did
on whether or
orders.
not they did that. Like they could have, but it could have also been violating orders or whatever else, right?
It could have been. It's a possibility.
Okay, so when you describe it as genocide, then, and maybe that's not clearly an example of it. Like where's the genocide in this then, as you see it?
It would be the destruction of the means to sustain life in the Gaza Strip, right? It would be like destroying necessary infrastructure.
You would have a much better case if Hamas did not
thank you.
truly
Okay, you
and
argue it for me.
intentionally booby
Thank
trap.
you.
Wait, let him
I
talk. Let him
appreciate
talk.
Let him finish. Let him finish, Tali.
Oh
Then
my
you
God.
can get him. I promise. I won't protect you. I
Tali's
won't
favorite
protect
time to
Prime from
talk
you.
is when I'm
So
talking.
I should
Hold
let
on.
him.
I won't protect
let him
Prime from
carry
you,
here.
but you gotta let Prime finish. Okay, go ahead, Prime.
Sure, right? Yeah, it would be like Israel, an example of a genocidal act, right? Because it's just like a combination of these acts. Would be Israel destroying infrastructure necessary for this sustaining life in an area, right? One example would be destroying water infrastructure there, right? We have videos of soldiers destroying a water. I think this one was a water reservoir. I want to say a water reservoir. I can pull up. But we have video of them bragging about it, putting it on social media, right? That's an example. Saying that stopping aid altogether, right? So in and of itself, for what was it, a month or so? I forget exactly how long.
It's
right?
2 months after they also let
For
like
2 months, yeah.
after
That would be
they'd also let like hundreds of trucks a day in for like through the entire ceasefire.
Sure. Okay. So that would be that in itself, like pushing a population towards famine. That would be a problem. The other thing I was going to say is fuck. Sorry. I had another one. Come back to me. I had another
Tali,
example.
I promised you. I'm unleashing Tali. Go ahead, Tali. And Katee,
Go ahead,
if you
Tali.
want to get in here, please.
Well, sorry, Tali, do you agree that happened? That Israel has destroyed the water infrastructure in Gaza?
In part.
In part, okay, right. So that would make it impossible. So the water infrastructure, right, isn't just like one thing. It sustains different parts of the strip. So maybe some parts of the strip are places where it can't sustain life because people can't get fresh potable water. Correct? Like let's say northern Gaza, just for example, might be a place where people might not be able to get fresh potable water, and in that area, right, that'd be an act of genocide. Is what I'm referring to. You don't have to agree to that.
Okay, I'm gonna let you answer that, but do you guys mind if I interject a new kind of thread to this discussion? Just so we
Can I just finish the line of questioning on the water?
Yeah,
If that's
absolutely.
okay.
Finish this line of questioning, but I just want to let you know I'm I want to interject something new so we don't circle forever.
Sure.
I guess my first question would be if it were the case that they're trying to dehydrate the population in whole or in part by, like, is that their way of genociding them? Okay, first question would be, they did this new aid mechanism because they kept on saying we don't want it to go to Hamas. But as far as I know, the water aid imports remained the same. They're still using the old mechanism. Why?
I don't know if that's the case. I don't know the details about specifically the water mechanism, so I can't comment on that.
It seems that they've done, it seems that they've done it in the same way as they did in the past, and they're okay with water potentially getting picked up by Hamas, right? So,
but
the second
that
question
whatever
is, well,
that
okay,
would
why
be, that
if-
would be. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I guess that would lead me to my other question, which is like, why after all this time is the health ministry? I think they've reported a few deaths of dehydration, but like very few. Why would it be? I think definitely less than, probably not more than a few dozen.
Just because the destruction isn't total, and that there is no water to be had, doesn't mean that they aren't engaging in genocidal acts. Correct?
What's the genocidal act in this sense?
Hold on. What did I just say?
Like killing people.
So be destroying.
Killing people with dehydration, or what's the goal of doing that though?
So the result would be killing people with dehydration. But the act of destroying that infrastructure, that is the genocidal act, right? Under international law. Like denying the ability for that area to sustain life, that is the act. Not like necessarily, Spain, so many people have necessarily died, right? So if you destroy the hospital, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, they destroy the hospitals. Destroy the medical infrastructure, completely degraded. Assassinating doctors, that'd be a problem.
Sticking to the water, you're only doing half the convention there. Destroying the infrastructure is what would be potentially one part of it, if it's like the first line, which is with intent to destroy the group in whole or in part. But I wonder what's the point in destroying water infrastructure if you're not going to like do other measures to allow the population to die of dehydration, or even to get like in any sizable numbers.
Because what I was saying to Tali previously, I believe I said this to Tali, that it doesn't it doesn't have to happen all at once. So you don't have to.
But it needs to be the special intent. You need to have the special intent.
Well, I already got it.
So it's not. It's not just if this action results in inhospitability.
And I've already shown you intent
to life, or in mass death, or anything like that.
I've already showed you intent, right? We have plenty of statements from the Israeli high command. That's it. That would be it.
The problem is that the statements are nothing without the acts. But
those are the acts. But those are the acts.
Yeah, but you're saying the act is destroying the infrastructure. But why would you destroy the infrastructure if you're just going to allow water aid to go in?
Correct. The acts
why would you do that?
In totality, don't deprive the population of water.
Prime, when Hamas makes genocidal statements, that means that they are intentionally going to be genocidal. And when Israel takes genocidal actions and says genocidal things, that doesn't mean they're genocidal. That's how that works. So please,
no, it's not how it works. The difference is that when
the word genocidal.
Okay.
No, the difference is that when I use Hamas statements, I can also look at all the footage that they've literally filmed for us by themselves in less than 12 hours. And again, even I've never committed to the idea that definitely was. I have never in my life committed to the idea that Hamas definitely committed genocide on October 7th. Because again, special intent is different. Like there are other reasonable explanations for why they did what they did. It's just the case for Hamas was like far stronger than what Israel's given us.
October 7th was a genocidal act?
I'm agnostic on it. I don't know. But I think the evidence for it is far more. I think the evidence for it is far stronger than anything Israel's done in the last 20 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Easy.
Let me, if we're done with the water thread that you wanted to go down, Loner, I do have another thread to kind of interject in here because I think it relates to the conflict in a very, I think, real way. Recently with the Colorado attack, where he burned some elderly Jewish people alive, or at least pro-Israel protesters alive, shouting "Free Palestine" while he did it, right, and other things. My question is, how much responsibility do pro-Palestinian advocacy groups with rhetoric such as globalize the intifada, from the river to the sea, bring the war home, etc., how much does that rhetoric bear responsibility for not only the Colorado attack, but the attack that was done against the embassy workers by the one psycho guy who went and just gunned people down, killed 2 people? Do we think that there is any kind of responsibility pro-Palestine advocacy groups have to kind of tone down the rhetoric? What do we think?
I mean, ironically, I think the attack in Colorado has really nothing to do with Western pro-Palestine advocacy. This man was, an Egyptian national. It's unlikely that he was radicalized in America. I don't think that's what happened in this case. But yeah, I'm absolutely disturbed by the trend in political violence against people who are suspected of being even milquetoast supporters of the Israeli state. And even and I know Wick, I'm not really criticizing you at all, but even this idea that these were like pro-Israel protesters is just not even an accurate description. These are people who had a weekly walk where they would get together to demand the release of the hostages. Oftentimes these types of groups are actually super critical of the Israeli government, the people who are kind of related to the hostage families and things of that nature. These aren't usually these are not like the ardent Zionists that they are purported to be. They are people who are concerned about dead and missing Jews. Like that's who they are. So even this idea that they were like pro-Israel protesters, they really weren't there protesting anything about
I'll
Palestine.
accept the correction. Fair enough.
It yeah, and again, it's not even personal,
I
right? It's
understand.
just just part of
But the question does remain, right? You understand what I was asking?
I think the rhetoric
I think
is.
the rhetoric.
Oh, sorry, go on. Thought you were
No,
done.
you go ahead.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. I think the the third person I think was Egyptian and probably got their views from like Al Jazeera or whatever. But again, it's like the Western lefty rhetoric is quite similar. No, it's yeah. I think I once heard a very funny quote, which Prime will love, and it's that anti-Semitism is hating Jews more than is absolutely necessary, because the idea is that for every not bad thing that Israel does, and they do a lot of bad things, it can never be taken in proportion, like even especially compared to even like things that happen in countries quite close to them. It's always got to be exaggerated. It can't be that there's food insecurity. It has to be that there's a famine. It can't be that there's like disproportionate strikes against some military that's literally using the entire civilian layout as their weapons infrastructure. It's got to be like genocidal strikes. It's got to be like targeted attacks on civilians. Like every horror story, like the UN coming out and saying that 14,000 babies will die within 48 hours. Like even though the report he was citing said nothing of the sort. Everything has to be exaggerated, and then obviously anyone who has any sympathy for it, for example Israel or even like the war effort or anything, well then they're not just people who are supporting a problematic state that's in a war that is like kind of just but also full of complexities and nuances. It's supporting the Fourth Reich, right? It's Gaza is the Warsaw Ghetto, Hamas are the guys doing the uprising, and anyone who has any sympathy for the other side is as good as like a Nazi supporter in World War II. And would you be surprised if a swastika waving fascist in the UK got like fucking attacked by a mob in the street? Absolutely not. No, because we did that like literally in all over Scotland and even my hometown. Like there was a whole thing where fascists would try to promote their cause in the 30s, and they would get beaten up by communists and leftists, and no one really cared. Like they didn't have the support of the police or anything because they were fucking fascists. So obviously, if you try and say that like Zionism is Nazism, or people who support Zionism are like on the same moral level as people who supported the Nazis in World War II, of course you're gonna have people getting assaulted. Like what the fuck's wrong with, or even attacked or killed, because it's happened in the past. And yeah, it's like a logical conclusion of the rhetoric. That doesn't mean anyone is directly to blame, but it's not about that. It's about being part of an ecosystem that dehumanizes certain groups of people in that way.
Okay, I'm curious what Katee and Prime have to say and think about that. Like, what did you think of what Loaderbox was saying? Do you not think that maybe the rhetoric of labeling anyone who believes in the Jewish, what would you call it, the Jewish ethno-state of Israel should be treated as a Nazi? Do you not see how that might be an issue? Anyone? Bueller?
Sorry, I thought that was
It's to Katee and to you.
I'll just say, as I said, Wick, I don't. You're not worthy of my time, but I do agree with Loner Box that dehumanizing Nazis was bad, and so if you think Zionists are similar to Nazis, then dehumanizing them is bad. I agree. So that's all I wanted to say.
Do you have?
I honestly can't tell if you do it on purpose sometime. Holy shit! If that was
I
intentional, well done, Queen. Holy fuck.
I think that pro-Israeli groups have pro-Palestinian groups have as much responsibility for those incidences as pro-Israel groups have for that mob that was harassing protesters. The Orthodox Jewish mob, many of them are Orthodox Jewish, harassing protesters in New York, right, where they surrounded a woman and threatened to rape her. We have all that on camera. And her testimony in the event. We have, the protesters, the counter protesters, were taking pictures of it as they harassed and threatened this woman as she was trying to get away. So I don't say that pro-Israeli groups, right? Let's say AIPAC, I don't know, right? Like they are responsible for that situation. I think the New York police are responsible for not actually taking proper countermeasures against the pro-Israeli side that showed up, the violent pro-Israeli side that showed up. I think the NYPD is at fault for not maintaining peace, right? They often don't do that when it comes to pro-Israel groups. They often let them get away with a lot of violence. So I blame them for that. But no, I don't blame, for instance, AIPAC or whichever group you'd like to name for that.
I feel like we just got asked a question about Christchurch, and someone just, and the right winger in the group just went on a fucking screed about like fucking jihadists in mosques radicalizing the local Muslims.
So you manage your feelings over there, Loner Box. Anyway, Wick, did that answer your question?
Nah, I mean, no, it didn't. Like, we understand, and we've had this conversation before, Prime, right? About
sure.
And I remember, and this is years ago, so maybe you don't, but you would say Libs of TikTok is responsible for the bombings that are happening at those clinics because the rhetoric.
Wait, you need me here for this because I'm not. Can I leave?
I need you here. Listen,
get out.
Queen.
Right?
I need you here, Katee.
Okay,
listen, I want to know. Is it okay? Is it okay to like? So personally, I don't really care that Nazis got assaulted in the streets in the 30s. I think that was based and funny. Do you think the same thing should happen to Zionists?
Well, I actually kind of have ethical reservations about the whole punch a Nazi thing, so I'd probably have an issue with that. You know, like, I don't know if I'll be just because someone is. I mean, should every MAGA guy be punched in the face because they're supporting a fascist government? I probably wouldn't support that. You know. Do I think they should be socially ostracized? Absolutely. Yeah, fuck that. Fascists suck. I just wouldn't punch someone in the face for being, Israeli Zionists who, for example, participate in the IDF are a bit different, although I wouldn't punch them in the face because they'll punch you harder and then they'll blame you for being anti-Semitic, so I wouldn't recommend it. But generally, a lot of people support fascists. We would be punching everyone. It's not okay. Doesn't seem like
maybe to come back to what you were saying, it sounded like you were mocking me for the perceived concern about Nazis getting dehumanized.
No, you were saying that we shouldn't dehumanize Zionists by, because you're okay with punching Nazis, but you wouldn't be okay with punching Zionists, and we should stop dehumanizing Zionists because at the end of the day, we'll be okay to punch them like it was okay to punch the Nazis.
Yeah, because I don't think Zionists are morally equal to Nazis.
Yes, and you and I disagree.
Okay,
and you know that.
You think Zionists are morally equal to Nazis?
At this point, absolutely, yeah.
So you called me a Zionist, Katee. Am I morally equal to a Nazi in your mind?
Wick, you Heil Hitlered on your stream. Please, spare me, okay?
That doing the Hail Hitler was why the Nazis were bad?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Yep,
this is why we don't understand why you come in here with such a smug and condescending tone when you really just don't have basic facts right about the world, about the conflict. You are not only uneducated, but you are miseducated, which is worse. You do not understand basic concepts, and honestly, you treat people like they're inhuman. She can
She
leave.
just left.
She can
You
go.
got fucking
That's
mogged,
fine.
Wick.
I don't understand why.
Yeah,
people
I don't
come in
know.
like this. I tried to be. Look, I was as patient as I possibly could be, but oh my god, every man has his limits.
Oh, okay.
Hold
she's
on. Do you think I did
unserious.
anything wrong there?
No.
Wick.
No.
No, I'm asking
talk to your
crime.
priest about it. Wick, talk to your priest about it. That has to be thinks you did anything wrong. I'm just gonna I'm gonna leave it alone. Wick. Yeah. So, but yeah, going back to that question, I think that it's so there is okay. Let me try to be more specific, right? If you're talking about stochastic terrorism, right? If that's, I mean, I know that's the question you're going for, Wick.
Yes. I don't
Yeah.
know if I actually got to the point, right? Sorry, I'm a little
Sure.
flustered, but go. Yeah. We've had conversations where you've said libs of TikTok, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it has been years. Maybe I'm misremembering, but libs of
Sure,
TikTok
sure.
has engaged in rhetoric that has led to people bombing clinics and engaging in violence against LGBTQ communities and things like that. You've said
So,
that, correct?
I don't remember my exact phrasing, but hold on. I'm gonna hold on. Wick, I'm gonna gauge you for this. Don't worry. I'm gonna gauge, right? As always, and if you've known me long enough, you've heard me say this plenty of times. Everything's a spectrum. Everything's a spectrum. And you can have spectrums of culpability, if like when you're involved with some conflict, right? Either by being, a soldier on the ground, or a propagandist, or like a politician. All these people have levels of culpability. So we're talking about stochastic terrorism. You can have within a pro-Israeli group or a pro-Palestinian group, right? Some level of culpability because you have been encouraging this level, this type of behavior, right? If you are saying, I'm sure our friends on the other side here could give me examples of pro-Palestinian groups in Palestine, in America, saying something horribly anti-Semitic, right? Maybe increasing the danger to our Jewish friends here, right? In that case, they have a higher level of culpability to like violent attacks that happen against Jewish individuals. And the same is true on the other side, right? It depends on who you're talking about and what the statements were, right? So maybe you can put into something, and I could say, "Oh man, that's horrible, right? If that happened beforehand, there's a very good chance that they increase this possibility by making things more dangerous for our Jewish friends."
It doesn't
It's
even.
interesting because I think.
First of all,
Can I just say something really quickly? I
Mhm.
think like that would be all good in theory if any of that were true, but what it seems like in practice is that we're only willing to make that allocation when it's Palestinians or Arabs or Muslims being attacked. So what I noticed is that when an Arab or a Muslim or a Palestinian is attacked in the United States, we blame pro-Israel rhetoric, we blame the genocidal Israeli rhetoric and stuff like that, who is dehumanizing Palestinians and Muslims and Arabs and treating them all like they're barbarians, which makes people not look at them as humans and want to attack them. But when Jews are targeted anywhere in the United States because people really hate the evil genocidal Zionists and the proxy to find the Zionists is just to find your local Jew, that we blame
You're
on
correct.
Israel.
It should be a two-way street.
We
You're
blame on
correct.
Israel and the Jews. So it seems like if a
Tali,
Palestinian
I agree with you.
act in America, it's the fault of Israel and Zionist propaganda. And if a Jew gets attacked in America, it's the fault of Israel and Zionist propaganda.
Tali, I agree with you.
Before you answer
There's
that,
no disagreement
hold on.
there.
Before you answer that, before you respond to that, right? This also goes to a point I wanted to make earlier in the show, but I didn't get a chance to. That if we see Israel as an ethno-state and we hold them to this standard, and yet you have countries, Arab countries with Sharia law, right, which means like non-Muslims can't really even run for Congress or vote or whatever system they have. Is probably not Congress, right? They call it something else. Why is it always Israel that's getting targeted, but you don't say shit about these other countries?
Because Israel is the one. Sorry, let me
sure. Take your time.
Right at this
Israel's
second,
got the
right?
power.
Israel is the one.
And powerful.
Let Prime answer.
Charlie's favorite time to talk is when I'm talking. Every time.
You're right.
Go ahead.
It's okay.
Prime.
It's okay. I don't hate you, Tali. You're a wonderful person. Okay.
I don't hate you either. So.
Okay. So yeah. why don't I talk about? So this mirrors a conversation that you'll see, or the thread you'll see Christians say to atheists, right? Well, why are you always talking about Christianity? There are um, uh, other countries, religions in the world that do awful thing, right? They point to Islam. Oh, Islam does horrible thing. Why are you constantly talking about Christianity? Well, the reason I being atheist talk about Christianity is the one I know, and two, it's the one that within this particular nation is transcended, right? Is in power, right? Those are the people who I have to deal with. I barely have to deal with Muslims. Actually, I do have neighbors who are Muslims, but I don't talk to them. But beyond that, I actually don't know any Muslims in my real life. I don't interact with them all that often, but I interact with Christians all the time, right? So that's the thing I'm going to talk about. And so back to your question, this
Do you have any
conflict is the one.
internalized Islamophobia?
Again. Oh my God,
Sorry,
Tali,
I'm just.
you're so. I like it. It's a meme. It's a meme between you and us, right? And it's fun. So I'm okay. I'm going to accept it. In terms of Israel, Israel is the one that is, let me not say genocide or ethnic cleansing, committing mass murder across Gaza, right? They are the side that has a superpower backing it, protecting it on the international stage, just like it did today. In terms of denying that UN resolution for peace, right? Like Israel is the one with that backing and being backed specifically by my taxpayer dollars. Now, does that mean that other countries are blameless? No. I'm sure you can give me examples, and I'd have to check them out, but I'm sure you can give me examples that I can come to agreement with you that are ethno-states, and then I reject, I deny, and all the other bad things as well. But Israel is the one in the news. Israel is the one doing the mass slaughter. And so Israel is the one I'm going to be talking about now. But if Saudi Arabia does it later on, well, don't worry, Wick. I will denounce Saudi Arabia. I feel like I'll do it now. Screw Saudi Arabia and all its practices. There you go.
Saudi Arabia did it for like the last decade. They literally, I'm guessing the lefty energy for that was just, and for
it was awful. Yeah. I agree. I mean, I've talked about that, right? I've talked about the U.S.'s culpability. I talked about how Obama allowed the Saudis to do that as a sop, right? To get on their good sides. That he allowed this bombing campaign with the assumption that Hillary Clinton would come to office next and stop the bombing. But Trump came in office, and so the bombing continued. So fuck Obama, fuck the Saudis, and I guess we agree.
Do you agree that for whatever reason the Western left has given like 1 billion times more attention to Israel-Palestine than they ever gave to Saudi and Yemen?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Even though Saudi is an American ally.
I think
and
so.
They committed worse crimes.
I don't know if they've committed worse crimes. I don't
Saudi
know.
Literally started a famine, like an actual famine, where like 1/3 people died. 80,000 children starved to death.
Oh, that sounds awful. Famine. Yeah, well, then we didn't give that attention, and I think that. I brought it up, to be clear.
But you understand. Hold on.
I brought it
up. Prime, you understand why when we see these things, why when we see this kind of juxtaposition between how movements and how the left, the far left, I would say, treats Israel versus how it treats any other country, you like, why is Israel given this special treatment when you have other countries, as Lonerbox just elucidated, that do the same thing or worse?
We have a relationship.
It becomes suspicious. It makes me suspicious. I begin to wonder.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, continue to wonder. Like we have a close ties to Israel. They say they're our closest ally in the Middle East, right? We fund them endlessly. They are nuclear armed power. They are constantly belligerent state. They have come in through awful colonial means. These are all things that tick off.
Those were a lot of loaded.
Well, yeah, because I'm a leftist, and I think have awful things that I think about Israel as a governing power, right? I think awful things about them. I think they should be dissolved, right? That'd be the greatest solution there, right? And a new state formed with the
Final
parties
solution.
there, right?
Do you think Russia should be? Do you think Russia should be dissolved?
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
Maybe, yeah. Actually, probably the
Like
Russian
what?
state
And the country turned into what?
So they
I don't
should
mean like the government.
elect
I
a
just mean
new.
like the state, not the government. Yeah, you don't mean the government when you say Israel. You don't think they should have a new election.
Oh, I
the
mean, like
country dissolved.
it could be the. So let me be more specific then, right? I'm mirroring the rhetoric I hear from Zionists that
No, you're not.
Israel. Well, again, Tali. Hi, Tali. Thank you. Let me respond to that question, Tali. You're wonderful. You're beautiful. So that Israel is like the Jewish, not supremacy is not the word they use. Jewish sovereignty or Jewish. I forget. There's a word here, but like having Jewish priority, right? Jewish control of the state, right, is integral to it, right? It has to be a Jewish state, right, for Israel to be Israel. You agree? Okay. Right. So when I say get rid of, like, dissolve Israel, well, it can still be called Israel, right? It can still have similar borders or whatever. I don't know, right? But I'm talking about the government and as it stands, its governmental practices. It can't be what I would perceive. I'm not putting this in your mouth, but a Jewish supremacist state. It can't be that. So
what about Jewish
whatever
majority
comes
state?
next.
What if they just wanted to control immigration, so they just stay a Jewish majority state?
Yeah, they're going to do that through violence. That's going to lead to the situation.
Just controlling immigration doesn't necessitate violence. Controlling borders doesn't necessitate like doing loads of violence.
Oh, hold on. So what are those borders? Those borders include the occupied territories?
Whatever borders
No,
you
let's
would
say they
agree
were.
to.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, let's say there's Israel and Palestine. Let's say it's like halfway down the middle. Even that.
And I'm not in favor of any ethno states, right? When countries, no matter what you're going to name, not one of them.
All right. So then, fine. So let's just go by the neighbors, right? So which neighbor goes next after Israel?
Sorry, whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't care. That none of that matters, right? Like, I don't support any.
Right. It's only Israel that it matters.
No. Hold on.
But
I keep saying I don't name all of them. I just said name all of them. I don't support any of them.
Yeah, but you see, there's like a little issue there because, like, unfortunately, because people do this thing like, oh, why does Israel not get to be like the one Jewish state when there's like 30 or 40 like Arab and Muslim states? But obviously, the Arab and Muslim states don't really need to worry about that because they have a clear majority. And even though it's all enshrined in the constitution, like Egypt is an Arab state and Islam is the religion of the state, and this is true for Iraq and Yemen and all these other places.
Fuck that.
Yeah,
so
you can say fuck all that,
Egypt should be dissolved. I'll do it all.
Let Loner finish.
Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, all of them. You want me to do that? Done. Okay.
So each country should just be open borders.
I wanted to hear Loner's point. I really want to hear Loner's point.
I'm trying to get rid of the colonial power.
So each of these states should be kind of like forced to just have open borders.
No, open borders. Open borders isn't the same thing. What are you talking about? Nonsense, right? You're saying specifically
open borders is not the same thing as like abolishing all of these states.
No, what are you talking about?
Making sure that they don't. If you're not allowed to, control your immigration, that is de facto open borders.
I didn't say just not allowed to control. I didn't say that. So I didn't say that they can't control their borders. I'm saying that, like,
you did. You said if they're controlling immigration to the service of protecting some type of ethnic majority, then that is illegitimate. Which means they're not allowed to control their immigration.
I didn't. Okay, sure. All right. Well, you can.
Never mind. I can ask it. I'll ask it in an easier way. Why do you think Israeli Jews want a majority? Why do you think that matters to them?
Don't know. Tell me.
Wait, you really don't know? Wait.
Obviously.
Well, hold on. I have my ideas, but then you're going to say something different. But so. I'm not going to play. You do this all the time. Lorna Box, you do this all the time, right? Where you're like, hey, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to have you feel around for the answer. And I'm going to say, no, that's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
I don't want to engage in that.
People who are confident in their positions and they feel like they know enough about the conflict.
Hey, you can try that, Lorna Box, but trust me, you're not going to tilt me, Lorna Box. I've been doing this for far too long, right? You're amateurish. It's not going to work. So if you can actually respond, right? Say, hey, just tell me what you want, an idea you want to engage with. I'll engage with that idea. I've been here literally. I've been literally.
She keeps
Yes,
reminding me that
and
I'm
he's
not talking
acting
to you.
amateurish at this moment. And I've literally been here for hours engaging with you, right?
Oh, we've
So
all
like,
been
let
here
me
for
engage
hours,
with
buddy.
that.
We're all here in it.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
But I have, and I'm still here, right?
True.
3
Good,
versus
good
1.
on you for
Correct?
remaining in the fray.
All right. Well then,
Yeah.
well then, Loner Box, just tell me what you want to engage with. You have a thought in your head. Express your thought.
Okay, that was a very long way to say I don't
Deal
know
with
what
your
you
feelings
think.
later. So just
Okay.
please express your thought.
Listen, I'm very tilted. Okay, I'm
I
just
know
saying
you are. I
that
can
when it comes
tell.
to the reason that Jews want to be a majority, especially in that region, is because back in the day, there was like two main schools of thought within Europe about what to do about quote unquote the Jewish question. You know, there's Russian pogroms happening. There's emancipation is not really working out because it's receiving lots of backlash. You got the Dreyfus affair. You've got like the rise of fascism. Nationalism as a whole is just very exclusive to a group that doesn't really have a nation like the Jews, right? So the dominant school of thought for the longest time was the assimilationists. They were like, okay, if we just drop the kind of like cultural practices about ourselves that kind of annoys people, and get rid of the braids and the hats and like just be a bit more like everyone else, and we can assimilate to a point where we'll be left alone. The opposition, which grew massively over time compared to the assimilationists, were the Zionists, the ones who believed that modern nationalism is going to exclude us pretty much everywhere. Like as it comes to rise, we are going to be under serious fucking danger. We're already experiencing it with pogroms and like loss of civil rights, both in the Ottoman Empire and in Europe. So the best resolution is for a state. Obviously, the latter, the Zionists, they were correct. They were correct. Assimilation did not save the Jews. The German Jews were about as assimilated as they possibly could be, and they were dead anyway. Same with the rest of Europe. So when they go to Palestine, they start by just buying up land along the coast, which is actually mostly empty and infested with like malaria and swampland. That's actually initially what they did. That's just true. Eventually, they also moved into buying land that was lived on, and then they paid for the land and got the owners to evict the tenant farmers. So that was always a bit more frustrating to the Palestinians. And then over time, they broadened their presence. And it seemed that the locals who lived there were just not keen on having them there at all. The head of the Palestine National Congress was someone who believed in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The head of the Arab Power Committee, Hajj al-Husseini, was a full-on Nazi. Like he worked with Hitler. So there was an issue here where these Palestinians had one very just reason to be very angry about foreigners coming and settling their land with the intention of carving out a state. But then on the other hand, there was also an issue where the Zionists who arrived there were arriving there as refugees. The majority of Israel is people who arrived there as refugees or they're the descendants of refugees. It is a refugee country. And for them, they didn't really have anywhere else to go. So they're like, okay, fuck, we either have to build a state with this population that is seemingly quite hostile to us, or we have to like try and take our chances and live under an Arab state. So obviously they chose the former, even though it was definitely antagonistic to the rights of the latter. And then the UN tries to resolve it with a partition plan. The Zionists actually say yes to that map. The Arab leaders and all the surrounding Arab countries say no, and we will fight against the implementation of this partition because they wanted all the land to be Arab. And then you had the 48 War. Obviously, the Zionists, they took advantage of the cover of war to get rid of quite a lot of the Palestinians. And famously, even though it wasn't like the government's plan to expel them, it was their policy to bar them from returning when they fled. So, and the result of that was that all the Jews in the Middle East and North Africa got blamed by their governments for those actions, for the failure of the Arabs to defeat the birth of Israel. And they faced either a shitload of persecution from their government, or they had this brand new state that was saying, hey, we're a Jewish majority. You will not get treated this way when you come here. So they all fled. Like basically 95+% of Jews from all of these Arab and Muslim countries, within less than 10 years, they upped and left. They took the opportunity, the first chance they got to go to a Jewish majority state. The reason that Jews want a majority as an ethnicity is because whenever they've been a minority, for the entirety of their existence, they have been fucked. The only exception to this was at the time was probably America. But America closed their doors in the mid-20s. So if you look at immigration to Israel, Palestine at the time, in 1925, it spikes. And that's because that's the same year as the Johnson-Reed Act, which put quotas on Jewish immigration. So Jews want to
So-
be a majority
Okay.
because they were basically told by the rest of the world that if you're a minority, there's a very strong chance we're going to fuck you.
Okay. Can I?
You're a refugee
Can
state.
I?
Yeah.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I very patiently listened to all of that. Appreciate Loner Box. This is why I said just state your statement, because apparently you wanted me to say all of that. I wasn't going to say all of that. But like only a 5-minute explanation. But I appreciate what you just said. Right, I hear you, and I think there's I can't find much of a much to disagree there with the history that you've laid out. Okay, all right. And here's my response to that: don't give a fuck. So for this colonial state, right? It doesn't have a right to exist, and two, right? If we want a safe state, I agree with you that like America closed its doors before, but America's doors are open. I invite my Israeli friends, all of them, to come here. Come to America. I would love.
They don't
more
accept. They don't accept.
I know they don't.
Because
I know they don't accept.
The
Hold on,
lesson
this is
that
about
they learned
this.
throughout
I
history is
know.
that they
I
need
know
to
they
be
don't
able to
accept.
protect themselves.
I know they don't
and they
accept.
cannot rely.
I know they don't accept.
They cannot.
And as always, Tali's favorite part going to talk is when I'm responding. Okay, all right, it's all right.
Wait, so
She's
that's
got
your
wonderful
solution?
hair.
7 million Israeli
So-
Jews should leave and go to America?
I wouldn't force them, but I would invite my Israeli friends to come join us, because
Well, yeah, but again,
if
it's
there's
like
any place in the world that is safe for Jews, right? That would be America. They're not surrounded by
Are they safe in
adversarial
Colorado?
nations. They're not. Sorry, hold on 1 second. They're not surrounded by
What
adversarial
about those
nations.
embassy workers? Were they safe?
Here, I'm sorry. Let me just finish this, please. They're not surrounded by adversarial nations here. Well, we're wonderful. We care about our Jewish friends. We pass laws, right?
We
To
care
fight
about
against
Jewish friends
anti.
so much.
Yeah. Oh, so we don't. This is not America. Outside of Israel, is America not the safest place? America is extremely welcoming to our Jewish friends.
America has been the best diaspora experience for Jews since Germany. So again, this is a
Okay.
precarious situation that the Jews find
Great.
themselves in.
Then
They
I
are not
invite
going
them
to
here,
relinquish their
and
ability to defend themselves.
I know
And
that.
to
Hold
Wick's
on.
point,
I wasn't asked whether the
America
Go ahead.
is becoming increasingly hostile to Jews. And Prime, you sort of made the case right at the beginning of this conversation by saying that it is valid and good to purity test Jews on whether or not they have any type of affinity for the state of Israel.
No,
So
no,
actually,
I didn't say that. No, I didn't. No, I didn't say that. Don't put that in my mouth. No, I didn't say that. I said,
Okay,
hey,
what did you say to that effect?
Sure. No, I'll rephrase what I said, right? I think it's understandable, and I use that word specifically when I ask you that question. Is it understandable that people are having this reaction? Not that it was right.
Is it okay?
Not that we should protest. No, it's not not okay. And I said that previously as well. Not necessarily okay, right? But this is an understandable reaction to this massive international global event that we're witnessing here.
Is it
real quick,
understandable
just real quick,
reaction
Tali,
to
just real quick.
what people believe is going on?
Just real quick. $5 from BL. Thank you for the $5 to say, people like Prime make American Jews like me feel like we need to move to Israel to be safe. He does not have. quote,
okay.
unquote,
Off
Jewish
you go
friends.
then. But to
I don't understand how colonizing like Arab land is like a huge no-no, but like apparently you're okay with them continuing the colonization of Native American land. That's fucking hilarious.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not okay with it. But it's
Prime
simply a
got
matter
outwoke.
of fact.
Holy
I'm not.
shit.
I'm not okay with that. But it's a
Holy
matter of fact. So like you're asking me. So the
You
question.
support expanding the
question-
settlements
the
of the
question-
United States of America.
Hell
question-
yes.
You
Manifest
support
question-
used to be.
expanding
The question
settlements
put
of
to me.
Turtle
The
Island.
question
That
put
is
to
Let him
me.
answer. Let
The
him
question
answer. Let
put
him
to
answer.
me. The question put to me was
horrible.
what do we do like if they were to disperse like actually I guess no one asked me that question. Never mind, no one actually asked me this question. But the thing that I've been trying to answer that's fair, right? Is that the thing I've been trying to answer is that like if this state were to disperse, what are we supposed to do with these individuals, right? One, I think we can integrate them, like I was saying previously, to the population that's already there. I think that's a possibility. We can through a peace process we can get there. You guys disagree with me? That's okay, right? But beyond that, right, there's going to be, even if that's the case, in my wildest dreams, right, the best case scenario, there's still going to be a diaspora from Israel. If it's no longer a Jewish state, quote unquote, right, there's still going to be a diaspora from them. I welcome my Jewish friends here, right? I want to be surrounded by more Jews, right? Find me Jews, plant them in my neighborhood. I welcome them. Like
we
that's
can
the answer because
we can put a camp outside
Or
of your
you've
house for
clearly
them
not
to
met
go
Israeli
into.
Jews.
Yeah,
Yes.
$20 here.
Fucking
Let me
Abram.
make a little money now that I can make money without violating.
To be
the
clear,
terms.
America has been kind of safe for Jews, although I guess like people who have been perceived as
Well, hold on,
Israeli
but
or Zionists just got
let
fucking
me read some
hate crime
Israel has been
twice in
kind
the
of
last
safe
couple of
too.
weeks.
Israel keeps getting attacked, as you keep saying. Jews keep dying in Israel. Israel is surrounded by enemies, right? Rather than creating
Okay, well,
a
people want to talk.
fortress
People want
in
to talk about the
Israeli
dignity of the Palestinians. Well, this is about the dignity of the Jews, and yes, they would
and
rather be at risk of
me
their
as
neighbors in the
America,
Middle East and
right?
be able to
As
defend
America,
themselves than to be at the whims of the host nations with a
Okay.
history of.
they're not whims.
Let me
No,
make a
they're
little money
citizens.
before
They're
you respond.
citizens here.
Before you
Citizens of
respond.
America.
Before you respond, let me make a little money.
So what?
Hold on. Money. Okay. $20 from Alexander Rin to say, at WIC TV, isn't half of the ruling party that is in power sending people to foreign person camps in the U.S., neo-Nazis, and most of the left thinks that they are equivalent to Nazis and can be murdered on the streets? That's what he says.
No,
And then
I don't know.
$5 from Fletch
Okay, sorry.
to say, why hasn't there been a huge push toward Israel adopting a Second Amendment for their citizenry post 10/7? That's a good question.
I don't know anything about that. Someone else can respond to that. I thought Israel had like a. Actually, I won't say anything. I don't know anything about that situation. Well, does someone else want to comment on that first? On this? No.
I don't know.
Okay.
Just reading the chats.
Okay. Yeah. I'm giving space for people to respond.
Okay.
Our Jewish friends wouldn't be outsiders. They'd be members of the citizenry, right? They'd have all the rights and responsibilities. They'd have votes.
Just like we always have until we don't. This is how Jews
Sure.
think. So here's the thing:
Sure.
like whether people, this is the thing too. And again, I avoid this part of the conversation because there's a certain number of people who are just not open to it. They don't really care, and that's fine. But if you are interested in taking into consideration the mindset, the view of Jews, they believe that things are always really good until they're not. And they have good reason to believe that because all of the Jews alive today are the ones who survived these attacks or who saw what was brewing in their society and got out before it got bad. And all of those different types of Jews carry you could call it irrational, but carry these different types of traumas around in them. And many Jews, most Jews perhaps, want to be able to maintain a defense of ourselves.
Do you
Even
think
when
Black
necessary.
Americans might have similar thoughts? Right, even if their suffering might not have been the same scale. I'm not going to compare our two struggles that closely.
Sure, Black Americans, right. It's really not a good analogy, but sure, might Black Americans feel like, yeah, sure, yes, they might feel that way.
That like our rights are always in question. That now we call it like DEI or whatever, right? But that's just an excuse by the right to roll back civil rights gains. Like anywhere they can. Like they'll just call it woke. Oh, okay, sure, fine.
I think wokeness is a problem.
Yeah. Okay, of course you do. You said you're on the right, but that's okay. I'm not trying to be condescending. You'll disagree with me, but from a Black perspective, all right, let me flex that for a moment. All right, from a Black perspective, that we also have feelings that our rights are always up for grabs, in balance, right? And not taken for granted, not properly addressed, right? When we have bills like the George Floyd Police Act, right? And that doesn't get passed. But we have hate crime hate crime
yes, Prime is Black. People are asking
Jewish
if you're
friends
Black.
and for
yes,
our Asian friends during the COVID pandemic, right? They address those things, but our problems, right, our issues weren't addressed there. We were asking for this bill, it didn't happen. And from there, like we were seeing an attack. We perceived to be an attack. You might feel differently from the Trump administration. Okay, so the minority groups in different countries have there's a precipitous like balancing act that they're always doing, right? That's the thing, right? So that's true in America. So if you're saying that's going to also be true for our Jewish friends, I would agree with you, right? But in Israel is what I'm always told, surrounded by enemies. Israel is always under attack, right? Israel is forcing itself in an area where they have militaries, according to other people. Now, I'm gonna put words in your mouth, right? Who are bloodthirsty for the deaths of Jews. So rather than trying to make Israel a fortress, and hope and putting more defense systems around them, right, and shipping more armaments for them, I'd rather import them here, and so they can integrate within our civil society, and I think
I'd
have the
rather
best chance
achieve
for
peace and
peace.
normalization with their neighbors, including the Palestinians.
Seems to me they've done a good job of it so far. I mean, they had 5 armies
No,
attack
they
them
have.
in the first war. Then it was 3. Then it became 2, and now it's become non-state
Then October
actors. Like,
7th
what are you talking about?
happened. I mean, then October 7th happened, and then I'm told the Jews aren't safe. Sorry, the Israelis aren't safe anymore. So like it, they're like you said, they're safe until they're not. I think the same is true for Israel, with the difference between
Right, and
their
at least they get to
them and
defend themselves with their dignity. This is whether
they
people
can do that here.
like
They can
it
do
or
that in
not. This is
America.
the
Yeah,
this is the
Israel's
no, they
Israel's
can't. No,
Of course they
can't.
can. Of
Hold
course
on.
they can. Why can't they defend themselves?
600 bits from Feder
You just
Methodist
stating that.
to say this. Does
Right, go
Prime
ahead.
support the chant from the river to the sea and the Arabic version from which it comes? If so, does he understand the hypocrisy of his mindset?
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Absolutely. Fuck
And
yeah.
the Arabic
You know,
version
do you
being
know
from the river
do you
to
know
the
the Arabic
sea.
version of
Well, I'll
yeah.
just tell him from the
Well,
river to the sea.
there's the Arabic version is not necessarily min al maya lamaya. It's not necessarily that one. It can be min al nahar minahar. So it can be water to water. Palestine will be free as well. It can be that, or it can be river to the sea. Yeah, it doesn't have to be Palestine will be Arab.
Okay.
That's just one of the versions of the chant.
Just one
But
version.
the counter to that would be if you look at the PLO charter, which was like the origin of popular Palestinian nationalism, they or like contemporary Palestinian nationalism, like they do say Palestine is Arab. Actually, they go even further and say like the Israelis, like they should not have a nation. It's an Arab nation.
$400. The BDS website says that in like their mission statement, literally, that this is Arab lands. That is
Yeah.
literally what they refer to. Yeah. So yes, and you're right. There are people use it in different ways. Ironically enough, the Arabic chant that I'm thinking of, right, from the water to the water, Arab, Palestine will be Arab. I've seen that chant in the United States.
Yep.
And then it's like a little silly and funny, right? Because you see all these people who don't speak Arabic chanting, doing the call and repeat or whatever. But yeah, they're saying this in America too. So most people don't know that that's what they're signing on to.
Yeah, and I don't think there's ever been a time when when the main Palestinian leaders, whether it was the Hamas, the PLO, Al Husseini, the AHC, they always said it. Yeah, it's an Arab state. It's not like a multicultural state. It's an Arab state.
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
gang. I'm tired. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
I think this has been exhausting for a lot of reasons, but I do appreciate all of you coming in for the bonus content that we had tonight.
Oh, I'm glad I put some money in your pocket, friend. I still appreciate you, friend. Honestly.
I do appreciate you too, Prime, and we will have to do more together. It was fun.
It's a shame that Katee couldn't stand the heat.
I just
Wow.
think she doesn't like me. But anyway, okay.
She asked you to put a conversation together, so okay, it's a little chicken shit to run away, but yeah.
She asked for just one-on-one with you and her. That's all she asked for. To be clear, I intruded.
Yeah, and then she quit.
So,
she quit because she was mad about Wick. So
yeah, she just wanted to talk to you. She was interested in you. But okay. But it's okay. You guys can feel however you feel.
I love you all. I'm gonna end my stream and maybe more. I will talk to you guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, where we're gonna have Diane Yap, who thinks the male gaze is disgusting and men should be ashamed of who they are. So that should be fun.
Tali, once again, it was fun talking with you. Hopefully we can do it again. Loner Box, this was frustrating, but I still like you. Okay, I don't hate you.
You too, buddy.
So.
Okay.
Yes,
stop being a fucking Jew hater. I'm sorry.
I love to have you on again in the future, Loner Box, if you wouldn't mind.
Anytime. Yeah.
Okay. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.
Okay. I'll see you guys later. Hold on. I'll move
Night,
you guys
everybody.
Oh,
out, and I'm gonna.
Tali, do you want to debate Hassan fan in my Discord?
Tali's
With
just
you?
getting all the attention, but
Do you know who Teuton is? If you watch my streams enough to know who that is.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
With you?
If you're in my Discord, he's there right now.
Okay.
He'll probably want to chat to you if you come in.
You guys deal with that. I'm gonna move you out. I'll see you later. Boop,
All right, good.
boop. Okay. Oy vey, ladies and gentlemen. I have 100? I have 100 what? 100 viewers? I can leave. I don't look. People are like, "Oh, you have so many viewers, you can't end the stream." Yes, I can. I don't care. Numbers, the only number I care about is the chat revenue, right? That's the number that's important. This is what people miss, right? They think, "Oh, he only has 20 or 30 or 50 viewers." I'm making like $100, $200, $300, $400 a night, right? That's the number that counts. If you're chasing the other number, you're wrong. Chase the chat revenue. That's how you do it. Thanks for tuning in. Trippy Cast, can I raid you? What are we raiding into? Look, Trippy, I don't know you. You're friendly and all, but we need to interact more before I just send my viewers off on a wild to an unknown land that I've never seen, right? Yeah, sorry. We're gonna raid into. Is Irrelevant streaming on YouTube? I want to raid both. Like, we have a little extra time. Is he? Let me see. Who's streaming right now? You know what? Lonerbox has given us a ton of his time. It would be rude not to raid Lonerbox, right? Right. He's live on YouTube, and he's not on Twitch that I see. So we're gonna raid Irrelevant on Twitch. So if you're on Twitch, we're gonna raid Irrelevant. If we're on that other one, YouTube, we're gonna raid into Lonerbox. Okay. See you guys later.